I'm in DDP's house hanging out with Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen. Yet again, another very special guest with me today. Actually, my first official interview on the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. Have about 10 pages of notes, so you're that special. Let me just start off by saying he has toured with Jake the Snake Roberts, does shows with RVD, yoga with DDP. He is the biggest thing in comedy. Give it up for Alex Kool Aid Ansel.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? You forgot that I'm the vanilla gorilla, the velour connoisseur, calorie drogo, the grande gringo, grandma's favorite mijo from San Antonio, Texas. Weight unknown, Alex Kool Aid Ansel. But hell of an intro. Thank you, Pat. I really appreciate it.
You got it, brother. And that was so damn good. That's why I threw you the alley-oop. You know what I mean? I knew you would deliver that better than I ever would, man. I want to start off real quick. Thank you for coming on the show and taking time out of your busy schedule. But where can everyone follow you on social media? I know you got a Twitch stream. Maybe give them your Venmo or Cash App information. Possibly you have an OnlyFans account, maybe.
You know what? There's plenty of stuff out there where you can see me at. Everything's going to be under Y2 Kool Aid, letter Y, number 2 Kool Aid. And actually, the way I kind of like arrived at my screen name, back in 98, 99, the whole Y2K thing was happening. And of course, as a wrestling fan back then, what was big back then? Y2 Jericho. And so I've been a wrestling fan for, a little bit before that even. And that's how deep the lore goes, that even all my online social media stuff is under Y2 Kool Aid.
Stuck with it. I'm digging it, man. Hey, have you ever started a show breaking through the freaking wall, yelling, "Oh yeah"?
One of the jokes I used to do was, the only walls I break are hymens, but given the political climate and how sensitive people get, it's a little. Plus, it's just not true.
I would have never known that until you just said it now. Man, we got so much to get to. We want to get to the pro wrestling stuff, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You in general with your career. Talk a little bit of sports. So, why don't we start off with? Now you are a Dallas Cowboys fan, correct?
I am. Yeah. And at this point, I'm wishing they would make they would kind of like sign an official sponsor with some company that makes antidepressants, so that we can get little star-shaped Lexapros or star-shaped Prozacs or something, because it's been tough. And I'm one of the things I always tell people that's been helping me get through it, especially 5 years ago and before that, was that, I watched the Cowboys. They start out great, in the beginning of the season. It does great. And then once December hits, it's, they hardly make it to the playoffs. And then that's when I get to focus on my favorite team of all, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. But now, all their greats have retired. The new young squad is coming up. They're doing great. And so I was like, I have that to kind of like lean into, look forward to for the playoffs, and then see how the Spurs go. But now, it's a big toss up on both teams, and they're keeping me guessing. And I don't know, like you, I kind of get superstitious where if I don't watch a game and they win, I'm like, all right, I won't watch the next one,
Right.
If I do watch it and they win, I'm like, well, I have to sit and watch the next one, and I do get pretty invested in my Cowboys and in my Spurs, especially because I'm not home in Texas. I'm out here in Vegas. And there's actually a surprising number of, obviously there's going to be Dallas Cowboys fans everywhere, but to me, it's still kind of weird to meet Dallas Cowboys fans that aren't from Texas. And I meet them all the time. And I'm like, oh, cool. What part of Texas are you from? Not to like, check them or anything, not to do like one of these, head nod. Hey, bro, where you from? Like that horse shit. Can I curse? Is that cool? Or
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Man.
And and they're like, no, man, I'm from San Diego, or no, man, I'm from North Dakota. I'm like, okay, hey, man, you like the team you
getting back to starting off hot and then it tailing off, sadly. I know what that's like. I'm a New York Mets fan.
Oh, okay. I've heard of them.
You know how that goes. July, August, things start to look very bleak, and by September, we're basically, they're getting ready, they're booking their vacations and such. So I know what that's about. But getting back to the football aspect of it, I'm a New York Giants fan, and don't be too hard on yourself, because even though we did get a couple Super Bowl wins in the last 15 years or so,
Yeah.
we both ended 6-10 last season, tied for second place. Basically, 7-9 won the division with the Washington football team. So we can't hang our heads too low. I think it's really anybody's division for the taking.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens. I know you open up tomorrow night at home, right?
Yes. Yeah. Against Tampa Bay and
Super Bowl
Tom
champions.
Brady.
Yeah, Tampa Bay. So you got them. I know we open up against the Denver Broncos. I believe our game is also at home. I think we got you guys week 5 at Dallas, week 15 in MetLife Stadium. We'll see what happens. It's always a good one, I guess you could say, or always usually close, even if whether we're both good or bad. So that's another story.
Have you seen that movie? I want to say it's called The Fan, and it's with Patton Oswalt, and it's about a it's either a Giants fan or a Eagles fan that really I'll send you the info. I got to look it up.
Yeah,
but
please
it's
do.
about that basically everybody in that division and how far some people take their just their love and their how bad they mark out for someone and how big they are mark for a team and whatnot. So it's an interesting movie to check out for sure.
I had actually never heard of it prior to this, so please do send that over. And I got to be honest with you, there are 2 times a year that I do support the Dallas Cowboys, and that's whenever you go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, because I cannot stand the Eagles, man. I went to school out in the Philadelphia area for a little bit, and boy, was that rough. So even
they're annoying.
They're annoying. And even me being from New Jersey, living in New Jersey still, more so towards the north area, I guess, but South Jersey might as well just be called Philadelphia too, because those South Jersey fans, Philadelphia, they're rough, man. It's rough.
Yeah. So. And, I'm not one to back down from shit talking. So, when I hear something going on, it's like, oh, really? Oh, we're playing this one? Oh, okay, let me get involved in it. And then, see where it goes from there. And
yeah, totally. Hey, I'm digging that. I'm digging that shirt, by the way.
What's that?
I said I'm digging that shirt you got, by the way. Eddie Guerrero.
Sure.
That's really nice for those that could see
it. If you need a little pick me up and you want to know what Philly fans are like, just watch that video of the Philadelphia fan eating horse crap after they won the Super Bowl, and it's like, all right, well, finally, kids other than in third world countries are going to wear a shirt that says Philadelphia is a champion.
Yeah, so I know. It's actually legitimate this time. I know. I couldn't believe it. That Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Patriots, that was, of course, I watched it, but I was like, oh man, I don't care who wins at this point,
Yeah, when that one was happening, 2 roommates, and one was from Boston, and like diehard Tom Brady, everything. Oh my God, if Gronk walked in, he'd just hug him, like fan. And then the other, of course, was the Eagles. And I was just sitting in the corner, just shit talking both of them. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's the only thing you can do is shit talk. I'm like, and was it that they were playing in the Dallas Stadium too? Like, it might have been. That's like the extra little. I'm like,
so Kool Aid. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were you at one point, or were featured in Rolling Stone publications, even on Prime Video? I was reading in your information recently. Is that that's the case? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was interviewed by RollingStone.com, which is, I'm like, I'll still take it.
No, that's awesome.
It's not a big drop off, but interviewed by RollingStone.com when I was touring with Jake, and I got to sit down with the interviewer, and his name escapes me, but I still follow him on Twitter. He's still a huge wrestling fan, still tweets a lot about wrestling, and so I interact with him on there sometimes. And that was years ago when we first met. So that was kind of like a cool credit to have my name in Rolling Stone, Rolling Stone pause.com, and then I'm on a couple I have like a bit role in a small movie on Amazon, and then like a pilot for a comedy in Vegas show.
All right.
And then hopefully I'm going to be on the new season, not this season, but the new season of Laugh After Dark, which is a comedy showcase series that they're filming right now in Vegas. And so I've auditioned a couple times, and they're like, "Hey, here's some notes," and I'm like, "I get it. I could be a little intense, you know."
Yeah. Of course, man. Oh, that's super
And
cool,
a little
bro.
scared, a little, I don't want to say something lame like I push the edge or push the envelope, or it's there's some stuff that the corporate suits are just like, okay, we need you to stay away from this topic, and can you talk more about this? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, okay,
Yeah, I feel like one of the laws, especially being a comedian, is you're not too fond of barriers. I mean, maybe to a point, but you kind of just like to do your own thing, fly up the cuff.
right. Like you can tell me if okay. What I hate is when people go, "Oh, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't, or don't talk about that. Don't talk, don't say that." You could tell me something. You could say, "Oh, I don't think that's funny." That's fine. Okay. It's my job to make it funny,
Sure.
If you're like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be talking about that." And it's like, I'm going to disagree with you, and I'll show you how talented I am by making you laugh about said subjects.
Right. I'm gonna find a way to make it funny. You might not initially think the topic is gonna be a good place to go, but I'll find a way. You're living in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? Living in Las
Yes, sir.
Vegas. You're from San Antonio, Texas. I got a
Yes,
big
sir.
question.
Hmm.
Being that San Antonio, Texas is the headquarters of Whataburger, proudly serving the community for over 70 years. Never had it because I was looking it up the other day. I was like, God damn, that sounds delicious. I was hungry,
Mhm.
hadn't eaten in about 10 hours. Third
Yeah.
cup of coffee. It was just a bad situation. You know what I'm saying? So,
Uh-huh.
before I get into it any further, would you consider yourself a fan of it? If so, what makes Whataburger so great or differentiates itself from any other burger joint?
Oh, I mean, for sure. If you can see these numbers that are right here, those are Whataburger numbers that you can get from the order. So I got one for 4.5 to like troll Trump fans, right?
Mhm.
And then I got the 420 course right there. But Whataburger, it's like a Texas chain. Originally started in Corpus Christi, Texas, and
Yeah.
then they moved the headquarters to San Antonio. And it's just a fantastic burger joint, man. It's just the beef is fresh. It's USDA prime cut beef. That's one thing that separates it apart. And then you could customize the hell out of your sandwich. So you can get grilled jalapenos, grilled onions. You can get A1 steak sauce. You can get mushrooms and bell peppers and onions and avocado and guac. And I mean, the possibilities are endless, and they're big burgers too. I mean, they're
Yeah.
pretty good size. They're not the cheapest out there, but
It's worth it
they're
though.
yeah, they're also 24 hours. So it's a great
Oh,
spot to
that's
hit up after a night of drinking.
tell me this.
And yeah.
You get off an airplane, right? You're just coming from Vegas. You're back home in San Antonio. It's been 6, 8, maybe even 10 months.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that's where I go. I
Kool-Aid
call it
Kool-Aid
the
walks in
Texas
there.
Embassy.
When you walk through the doors, it's like angels with friggin' harps.
Oh,
What
for sure.
what do you order?
Okay, here's my go-to. I don't go as hard as I used to because I'm like, okay, sometimes I can feel my heart slowing down. But what I'll usually get is I'll get a double meat, double cheese Whataburger with bacon, jalapenos, grilled onions, and A1 steak sauce.
Worth the wait. It was worth the wait.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And what another thing that separates Whataburger from everybody else is they have what's called fancy ketchup. And it tastes a little better than just regular ketchup. And then they also have spicy ketchup, which is just mwah, chef's kiss. It's a delight. And I actually have a bottle of the spicy ketchup in my fridge because you can buy some of the stuff and the condiments and stuff online. And then,
Sure.
of course, when I go to Texas, I'll come and bring back, bring back goodies like that too, or even have like people send me stuff too. So that's amazing that people will send me
What a burger care
local
package.
Texas delicacies.
Yeah. So what a burger is in 10 states,
Mhm.
369 cities, 284 of them are in Texas. The
Uh-huh.
closest one to me is in Brunswick, Georgia. I have to drive 900 miles on I-95 to get there.
Holy shit.
I'm sure it will be worth it, man. But if you happen to talk to the owner or the founder, please maybe get some on the Northeast over here.
Well, they did get bought out by a Chicago restaurant group, and they are expanding. And actually, I think who's the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, the young hotshot?
Talk about Mahomes, Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes. One of his things was like, if he's going to stay in Kansas City, they have to build a Whataburger, and so they like worked it out. They are going to put a Whataburger in Kansas City.
No way, I did not.
Yeah, I swear, I read that somewhere, so it could be true, it could be bullshit. And then it sucks though for me because the closest Whataburger to me is in Phoenix, which is about 4.5 hours, which is not too bad. But that every time I do a show in Phoenix, that's the first place we go to before the show.
Right.
We'll eat there, we'll do the show, and then we'll pick up some more on the way back if we're driving back that night to take back home.
You got to strike while the iron's hot, bro. So hopefully one day we could get together, maybe indulge in your hometown of San Antonio, which
for sure. Or next Mania or whenever they do something in Dallas at the, they do. They're going to do another Mania at the in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, right?
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think WrestleMania 38 next year, I believe, is there.
There you go. So when you fly into Mania.
All right, fair enough, man. Then we'll do an in-person interview. This way, no friggin' Wi-Fi, no trouble, man. We're right here eating our Whataburger together, man. So
hell yeah.
Do you have a favorite casino out in Las Vegas? Do you frequent them at all, or would you recommend one?
Well, it depends on what you're into. Like me, I don't really gamble. I mean, one of the jokes I do is the only thing I really gamble on are, the women I talk to and the chairs I sit on. So it depends on what you're into. As far as like, I mean, there's the casino that I like working at the most is the Strat, because I work at the LA Comedy Club quite a bit. Right. And for me, it's like easy to get to, great room. You always, the people that go into that one are people that don't really go to comedy shows. They're like, oh, look, I got a free ticket. Let me go watch this. But as far as that, I don't know. Like, are you talking about like in terms of gambling, entertainment, or just like, oh, hey, it's fun to hang out there? Or
like if I'm speaking for me personally, it strictly would be entertainment. I'm not a big gambler myself. I mean, I have Atlantic City at my disposal, just an hour or two away, and I'm rarely ever there. And if I am, it usually is for some, go to a nightclub or something.
Yeah. Planet Hollywood is cool because they got plenty of they got some comedy stuff there too. Edwin San Juan, fantastic comic. He has a nightly show there at 9 p.m. And then that whole Planet Hollywood complex is, there's a mall attached to it and like two other casinos. And it's just a massive, feat of engineering. And to be honest with you, I don't really go to the Strip unless I'm working. Like, I don't really hang out on the Strip. I'm more of a dive bar kind of person. If we're going to hang out somewhere, or if I'm going to watch the game somewhere, I'll go to a friend's house or I don't really, go to the sports betting or those type of spots to watch sports. Cause, if anything, I'll walk through them before I go do a show, and I'm like, oh, let me watch 5 minutes of the Cowboys game. And then you kind of look for other Cowboys fans and you're like, yeah, right, buddy. Yeah. And then you kind of give the mean mug, the other, like, oh yeah, you want to play you? All right.
Right.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, which casino is easy to get to, which has free parking. That's another big thing.
A lot of things that come into play here when you discuss. It's a very vague question, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's to each his own. So speaking of the Strip, I was thinking, man, hear me out. If Kool Aid has a finisher, you're a pro wrestler, you have a finisher. What if you called it the Las Vegas Strip? You slowly seduce the opponent in a towel similar to a Val Venus. Maybe a shower cap is involved. What do you think about that?
Okay.
Just a thought.
And then it would turn into the stink face, but I would call it the Fremont Strip or the Fremont face dive or something.
2-for-1 special, man. You'll be undefeated.
So it starts with the Las Vegas Strip, and then it ends with the Fremont Experience, and then that's when I stick my butt in your face.
Sounds like a win every time, man. I want to get to the wrestling bit in just a little while because we'll run through some more questions. But real quick, while we're talking about finishers and pro wrestling, a few years ago, didn't you go to some kind of a seminar or a camp of sorts, wrestling camp with D'Lo Brown? Talk a little bit about that.
So this is great. So I was living with Jake out here, and that's the whole reason I moved to Vegas was because I was touring with Jake. We did a bunch of shows in Texas,
Sure.
and he invited me to come visit him. So I visited Jake, and
By
one
the
of those
way,
days.
people, he's talking about Jake the Snake
Oh
Roberts.
yeah, Jake the Snake Roberts. Sorry for
Yeah.
I'm so casual with my name dropping.
It's not the Bodies by Jake guy. It's you know.
Yeah, there you go. And he goes, "Hey, I think you should move to Vegas. I think you should move in with us." At the time, him and his daughter, and I was like, just like, what? Huh? This guy I used to watch on TV wants me to move in with him, huh? You know.
Damn cool.
So he was also involved with Sin Bodhi, aka Kazarni, right? In a wrestling school, and then they kind of wanted to launch a wrestling fantasy camp. That's the words I'm looking for. So it was called Fantasy Slam. And he goes, all right, Alex, we're gonna get you to do this. And and I was like, I know why you want me to do this. Like, they wanted me to be in the promo video because they want to attract fans of my size and stature, I'm sure. And they're like, hey, if there's a big fat guy that's doing it, I could do it too. And I'm like, I know why I'm being used here. Like, I know what's up.
What am I, a symbol of hope, if you will, to the
Yeah.
and what the hell?
And of course, I didn't hate the idea of getting in the ring and learning moves, of learning you collar and elbow lockups, you know, and learning how to run the ropes. And you know, it was I felt safe the whole time, of course, and they were very patient with me. There were some things that I was better at, promos, than in ring stuff.
Yeah. Did you take any bumps? Were you taking bumps?
Yeah, they had me you know, learn it, and I was like, and he goes, yeah, you get used to it. I go, okay, you know. So I didn't take too many, and I was willing to, and they're like, no, big fella, we're gonna need you for the whole weekend. And I go, okay, you know. But they had me like choke slam a guy. That was pretty fun. And work on like I said, the promo stuff, and they put me in an outfit where I was all cheetah print, and I wanted to be called Kitty Litter and be kind of silly, but Jake took me aside. He's like, I need you to take this shit seriously, you know, with his deep, gravelly voice. And I was like, fine, you know, like, all right.
Right.
And then they had me, they were like, all right, you're gonna do a minute promo on why you're gonna fight Jake. And I was like, and then they gave me you know, and then of course I had to deliver like a big line at the end. And on my second try, like I blew everybody out of the water. And he's like, all right, that's what we wanted. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what I do. I talk for a living. Of course I'm gonna be good at that part.
Bro, I could see it now. Jake the Snake Roberts, Kitty Litter. If that doesn't scream WrestleMania main event, I don't know what does.
So he can get a little cat scratch fever and, you know, that kind of stuff. And so because I wanted to, you know, be silly and have fun with it, because that's the type of person I am.
Of course.
And he's like, no, take this seriously, all right? Quit screwing around. I'm like, I get it. Okay, because again, the whole reason I was for that weekend was, again, so they could basically film a commercial for Fantasy Slam. Okay. And it was a ton of fun. You know, I got to hang out with D'Lo Brown. I got to meet him, and he shared a bunch of, you know, his wisdom, his experiences. And then Kazarni, you know, Sin Bodhi at that point was just like the homie. Like, he would come over and hang out at Jake's all the time. And it was funny because the first night I met him, he's like, you a Mark? And I go, oh yeah, you know. And he's like, all right, so who are you guys? And I just looked him dead in the eye and went, my favorite right now is Bo Dallas.
Oh, that's great.
Like, that's great. And he just goes, all right, you know, like he kind of went, all right, you're like a real fan. You know, it's not like I just went, I love John Cena.
Right.
You know,
you know what? Your honesty was so great though, because like, you know, hey, yeah, I'm a Mark. I love me some Bo Dallas. two things people aren't willingly gonna admit up front. So that I commend you on that, man. That must
For
have went
sure.
well. And
For sure.
I saw D'Lo Brown's actually doing some announcing now for Impact Wrestling. I've been
Oh, cool.
catching that lately, so that's pretty cool to see, man. Because I haven't seen him in years, honestly, till your post a few years ago. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. Are they still doing that out there? That whole fantasy slam or fantasy camp or
No, as far as I know, they're not.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because that was also part of, then they had like a wrestling school that they did with that, like I think it was called like the Snake Pit Wrestling School that they were kind of running out of it. And then it was affiliated with FSW. Is it FS? Yeah, Future Stars of Wrestling out here. Okay. And then, but I don't know all the internals and the politics of all that. So so as far as I know, like I honestly haven't talked to Jake in probably at least like 2 years. And as far as I know, he's out back east, either in Texas or Atlanta area.
Okay. Well, I know that guy, that he's managing for, Lance Archer, is actually, I think, from the Austin, Texas area. So I don't know if that may have also brought him there too. It's nice to see him back on television. It had been so long.
For sure.
Even seeing guys like Ted DiBiase, he had a storyline with NXT recently, and so it's nice to see the old timers back on television in some capacity.
With Cameron Grimes, Cameron,
dude, he really grew on me, man. Honestly, and when he initially started NXT a year and a half ago or so, I was like, last 3-4 months, that storyline with LA Knight, I love it. I love watching those two wrestle.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to catch up on some NXT, and I think like a lot of people, especially in the most recent developments. When AEW first started, I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I just went, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, nothing really like hooked me or kept me like, oh my God, I got to watch next week. Cause I was never really too invested in some of the like true indie stuff. Cause I grew up on WWE, WCW,
Sure.
That was my wrestling diet. And now in the last like 6 weeks, I just on Monday watched the AEW pay-per-view that they just had.
That was
All
bonkers.
Blew my fucking mind from beginning to end, and I went, oh my God, this is how good wrestling can be.
Best pay-per-view of the year.
When it was like this.
Right. Best pay-per-view of the year. And a lot of people had problem with it at the end of the show where it was back-to-back Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. I said, I have no problem with it because at the rate and influx of talent that AEW is getting, they're like, why didn't they string it out? I'm like, dude, they'll probably have somebody new by next week anyway. I'm like, so that was what a way to finish a pay-per-view, man. AEW is looking really good lately.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, they, of course, when you're so used to the production value and the scale and everything that WWE does, I kind of almost equate it with like, oh, it's like eating McDonald's every day. And you're like, oh, McDonald's tastes good, but is it good for you? Nah. Mm-hmm. And then AEW is like, all right, we're going to take some of the same ingredients, right? And then take out some of the fillers and the stuff you don't want and, make it just more refined and better product. If you still want some of the silliness, you have Juice Cassidy, who I love.
Yeah.
Orange
Cassidy, he's great.
Orange Cassidy. Yeah, my bad. So like who I just adore that. And then of course the return to CM Punk. I was one of those people that I never really gave a shit about CM Punk, really, but his return did make me cry because of just how emotional and everything
it was a big deal. I told a lot of people that too. I would never outright call myself a fan of CM Punk. Loved his work, but I was never, I didn't have a bunch of memorabilia or T-shirts. Right. But as a fan of pro wrestling, seeing him return 4 weeks ago, it was an emotional moment, man. It was
absolutely
big. And I think that's my biggest thing with fans of pro wrestling. You have these WWE diehards in one corner, and hey, look, you can see from the video, most of my stuff here in this man cave studio is WWE predominant, like you said.
Absolutely,
what we grew up on. But if you are looking at legitimate, something new, something fresh, storylines, quality, it's not so much WWE versus AEW, maybe amongst themselves, but as a fan, you got to really give AEW a chance because what they're doing right now is something special. They're not just taking free agents; they're actually molding them into something.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm really glad of what they've done with their women's division too, because that's one of those, one of the criticisms AEW has gotten is, what's AEW stand for? All ex WWE.
Right.
Not too many in the women's division. A lot of them are just like indie darlings and awesome people from Japan. And now they've had they have this incredible division that's just it's really holding their own and coming into it. And
Yeah, they're slowly getting there, man, but they are
yeah,
definitely making vast improvements. They're
I'm a
looking great.
huge Thunder Rosa mark. So, you
Love
talk
Thunder
about South
Rosa.
Texas.
Love Thunder Rosa. That's right, man. I met her a few years ago at one of those several conventions.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was great. I want to ask you, by the way, being in Vegas, I know SummerSlam was just there, Legion Stadium. You plan on going to any Raiders games out there?
If the Raiders are playing the Cowboys, I'll go.
And
But
you're in there?
other than that, I'm not trying to get stabbed. For
I
as
didn't.
much shit as I talk about Raiders fans, oh my
Oh
god.
boy. Okay, well that's fair. That's fair. Are they on the schedule this year, or would the
No,
game even be there?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. And one thing is, I've never been to an NFL game before,
Oh, you
and
haven't?
I never. I would love to go because, I mean, it's just, of course, Dallas Cowboys is one thing, and then two, it's just such a grand spectacle. So I'd love to go and check it out. But I've heard from some sources that a lot of stuff at that stadium are, they've had a lot of hiccups, not just from Raiders games, but from SummerSlam and like concerts,
Fights or technical issues or what?
technical issues with like and then plumbing issues too.
Plumbing.
And these are like people that are like higher ups in different casinos, and they have like insider knowledge of all this kind of stuff. And like one of the, you probably saw about at SummerSlam, where they ended up giving out a bunch of food for free because of the whole POS system going down. And like people were wanting to buy, food and drinks and everything. Nothing was working, so they just ended up,
Oh wow. I didn't
giving
even
out a
catch
bunch
that.
of stuff.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
plumbing
So
issues. You're saying go to the bathroom before you go there, huh? Is that what you're saying here?
yeah, that's one of the things that really keeps me away from going to stuff like arena events at all. Is just like, bathrooms gross.
You didn't even need the pandemic to keep you away from these things, but now it's
Yeah,
just kind of like,
true.
all right, yeah, I'm definitely not going now. By the
Yeah.
way, I want to jump back to San Antonio in your hometown.
Hmm.
Talk some San Antonio Spurs before we get to the wrestling and stuff and your career.
Yes, sir.
For better or for worse, maybe on more of a serious note, how did the pandemic affect you? I know as a comedian, just like live performers, musicians, it was difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thank God for the videos and the Twitch stream and all that stuff. But give me a little insight on what it meant or how it affected you.
Yeah, it was rough, man, because I think it for me, okay, so here's how the pandemic started for me. March, the first Monday of March, I found out my dad had passed.
My
And then the
condolences,
second Monday of March was the last time I performed until like late May. And yeah, because like doing comedy for me is like, that's where I get my rush. That's where I get to be on stage and get all the good feelings that I need to keep going on with the other 23 and a half hours in a day, or 23 hours and 45 minutes where I'm not on stage. And for that to be kind of like, taken away. Plus I'm a very social person. I, love hanging out with people and hugging and interacting and listening to people. One of the things that I love doing is just listening to people and then if somebody asks me something, I go, oh, okay, yeah, let me answer a few words as possible. I know not in this interview, but but it started rough, man. It took its toll on me. But thank goodness for stuff like FaceTime and Zoom
boom, right there.
and
Yeah,
just to kind of like see faces and interact, because it was super isolating. I mean, for all the times where I'm like, this is great. I could wear pajama pants, for a whole week and I don't have to,
yeah,
and then there's other times where you're like, all right, well, I can only go to the grocery store during these certain hours. And okay, you got to stay away from, and oh my God, hand sanitizer everywhere. And what, there's no toilet paper? What do we do?
yeah.
But there's some moments where emotionally and mentally I was struggling pretty hard. But like everything else, you just kind of adjust and get used to it. And now I'm in trouble kind of like breaking out of that. I've gotten so used to
That
making
routine.
my environment as comfortable as possible and as like chill and like the way I have my room set up, like unemployment helped out because I feel such a piece of shit because with my unemployment I got the new Xbox. I got a PS5.
I got a Rolls Royce Bentley.
Yeah, I mean, I did get a car, Hyundai. But so I got these things that kind of like help make the home here, and now I'm getting like it's getting harder and harder for me to be like, all right, let's go leave the house and do something, or let's go. But
Sure.
like getting booked again and getting gigs and getting work really helped out, because like the motivation for me to do like an open mic where you go and try new material, I'm like, I could do that on Twitch. Why do I have to leave the house? Why am I going to waste gas and do this and yeah? But if I'm going to get booked to go work somewhere, okay, then I'll go and leave the house, go in front of people, sell some stickers, do this kind of stuff and build a fan base. So I'm kind of, just like as hard to get into it, it's just as hard to get out of it.
No, I get that, man. I totally understand. You start to really weigh out your options, but
Yeah.
that had to be really difficult at first, though. Honestly, you're just so used to the daily, mingling with people and shows before, during, and after, and it's kind of like that switch was just flipped off, and you didn't know if and when it was going to be turned back on. So now that you're adjusted and acclimated to this lifestyle, it's like, man, okay, now I can do either, but what's worth it and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it kind of like, last year in August and September, when some of the restrictions were kind of like easing off a bit and they would let a certain amount of people gather in places, and then we did get to do shows, and I would just be like, oh my God, I just want to hug everybody, just would do all that. And I remember I posted in like my Instagram stories, it was so good to hug all my friends again. And one guy was like, yo, you need to take this down, nephew. And I was like, nah, kiss my ass. I'll show my emotions. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm right on board with you there, man. That's from the heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Dude, well, I'm glad you got those game consoles. That's one of the definite pros of the pandemic. Even my wife said there was, certain pros, as difficult as it was for everybody in certain ways. There was definitely a silver lining of sorts through it all. So I want to go back to San Antonio real quick.
Yes, sir.
I know you're a big Spurs fan. Again, I've been to San Antonio twice. The last time I went was probably about 20 years ago, actually. The Spurs were still playing at the Alamo Dome. I was a freshman in high school. They were playing went to a game. They were playing Kevin Garnett and the Timberwolves. Don't know who won, but this was a year or two after they won their first championship in '99. I think that was the only time they won the Alamo Dome. They won the other four in where do they play now? AT&T Center?
The AT&T Center.
AT&T Center, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a lot of fun. You've been to Spurs games, I would imagine?
Yes, I've been I think I've still been to more at the Alamo Dome than I have been at the AT&T Center.
I like the Alamo Dome. I really did. I always thought it was very interesting because they had that curtain, that big blue or black curtain. It was different than a lot of typical arenas because like they run so many other events there. I think they still do, right?
Oh yeah.
So that was a good time, man. That was the first time I actually heard of LeBron James too, because when we were there, I was with my parents at the time, and I saw Sports Illustrated, and it had LeBron James as a high school junior or senior, and they were talking about jumping to the NBA next Michael Jordan. I'm like, really? I'm like, isn't this a little too soon? And now, lo and behold, I mean, one of the best to ever do it. I'm just like, wow. I always relate that back to my trip in San Antonio. But it was a great time, man. I got to get back there, catch a game. Of course, the Twin Towers, David Robinson and Tim Duncan, the great front court from 97 to 03. David Robinson retired in 03. Got a little trivia for you.
All right.
Do you remember the Twin Towers in WWF? They were heels. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. I remember like hearing them referenced, but I don't remember who they are.
All right. So it was Akeem, aka the One Man Gang, and the Big Boss Man.
Oh, okay. There you go. That makes sense.
They're together from 88 to 90. I was actually the first time I was ever a wrestler for Halloween. I think I was 5 or 6, and I was the Big Boss Man actually. And we still don't have any photo evidence, so you're just gonna have to believe me. I'm like, Mom, there's got to be a photo somewhere, and we can't find it. Not happy about it.
Yeah.
But lo and behold,
that's hilarious how they have a card and then a gang member team up. It's like it's a very odd couple thing.
Yeah, that it really was, man. Akeem, they're well, I know Boss Man unfortunately died years ago. Akeem, One Man Gang, I believe he's still alive, still here with us, but Yeah, man. I've since been a wrestler numerous times. Now I've been The Rock, Kane, Shawn Michaels, Roman Reigns, Sting twice, Crow and Wolfpack. So I don't know. Maybe
Oh
this year
yeah.
I'll be Bret Hart while I still got the long hair. Who knows? I'm willing to take
There you go.
suggestions. You know?
Oh yeah.
What the hell? What's the last time you dressed up for Halloween?
Um I think I went to a party like 2-3 years ago here in Vegas, and one of my go-to standby costumes that I always have ready is Cartman.
Good
Because
one.
who uh so South Park started what, 96, 97?
Yeah, right.
And or maybe even later than that, maybe 97, 98. So anyway, I remember being a freshman in high school anyway, and South Park was kind of taking off, and my mom at the time knitted me uh the Cartman hat, with the blue and the yellow. She knitted me
Nice.
that hat, and then it was shortly before she got ill and then eventually passing. So I've always held on to that hat, and it's very near and dear to my heart. And for a couple times when I would do the costume, I'd wear the hat. I had yellow gloves, and I'd wear like a red, usually a red t-shirt because you're in Texas. I'm not going to wear a red overcoat, and then khaki pants and black shoes, and then I could be as racist as I wanted. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, you're Cartman," and I go, "Yes, that's right, Cartman." And so that was one of my go-tos. And then a couple years ago too, I dressed up as Casey Jones from Ninja Turtles.
Oh, Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I have a few Ninja Turtles questions I want to get to in
Oh
a little
yeah,
bit.
I'm a
That's
huge
great.
Ninja
I
Turtle
think.
mark. Damn.
Oh my god, me too, man. Power Rangers as well, much like yourself.
But yeah, going back to the Spurs thing though, it felt so weird when Tim Duncan retired, because Tim Duncan has been such a not a big part of my life, but a long part of my life as far as like being a Spurs fan. Because I remember in middle school, we got that first round draft pick. And I remember getting excited of like, oh man, we're gonna get this amazing guy from Forest. And just like, and the whole like Spurs culture, because of like what Greg Popovich has developed, is that very like
Incredible.
super humble, do your work, play defense, no flashy bullshit, and the whole like how it's an international team, and they brought in all these pieces from all over the place.
Ginobili, you name it. The list goes on, man.
And then just like Greg Popovich's own politics and how they don't really line up with a lot of like traditional, when you think Texas red state things. Right. Pop is very progressive and very like, didn't like Trump and he has a degree in political science. Like a lot of people don't realize that he's not just a basketball coach. Like he knows what the hell he's talking about.
Sure.
And so I've, like Pop is just, to me, he's, probably top 10 human beings.
Oh, I love Pop, man. Honestly, Spurs have always been one of my favorite Western Conference teams, without question. Yeah. I've bounced around over the years. Basketball is the one sport where I've always bounced around. I went from the Bulls to maybe the Cavs a little bit. I think I even like the Hornets in the 90s because of their colors or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Morning, Larry Johnson. But Western Conference, always enjoyed the Spurs, always usually rooted for them 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has kind of like rubbed off on my sensibility. I'd like to think so, of like, all right, work hard, don't be too, like just do your work. And because I see, colleagues of mine, they'll post about, oh, I crushed that show, I killed it, I da. And to me, my thing is like, if you have to post about how well you did,
right, let the fans do that.
It's a little sus.
Yeah,
like if I post, yo, this comic fucking killed it, it was amazing, holy shit, then that holds more truth than like,
right,
I'm the best, what's up,
right.
But
no, that's a good point, man. And as a matter of fact, if I could show my Spurs fandom for at least one season,
absolutely,
it was the lockout season, 1999, where the Spurs went to the finals against the New York Knicks, where the Spurs captured their first championship. And so I had very bad asthma growing up. We tried everything, man, nebulizers, pills, all this. So my mom took me to the city, being in Jersey. We took the train to New York City, of all places, and I got acupuncture. There was pins sticking out of everywhere, brother. Let me just say, I went for a couple sessions. I had pins going to my eyes, toes. I'm like, what does this have to do with my lungs? But it's funny, I don't know if you've ever experienced acupuncture. Have you?
I haven't had it done, but I'm familiar with the.
But you're familiar with all the
yeah.
nerves and all that stuff, so in my toes and everything. And I was really nervous about this whole thing. So my mom's like, "Look, get through this." She's like, "I'll bring it to the NBA store down the street. Pick out whatever you want, and hey, just remember that during this whole thing." So I remember that as I looked like a freaking porcupine. I just closed my eyes after a while. Things
Yeah.
popping out everywhere. We left, went to the NBA store. I could have picked anything, mind you. This is right around the time of the NBA Finals. Knicks
Yeah.
Spurs. What did I pick out? I picked out a San Antonio Spurs snapback.
Hell yeah.
They were not happy about it. They're like, really, of all teams, and you buy it in New York?
In New York,
You
yeah.
disrespectful son of a bitch. And I think it's still at my parents' house. I'm pretty sure my dad wears whatever hat he sees lying around.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we still have that hat, but I always think of the Spurs' first championship and that whole experience. And I don't know what compelled me to buy that Spurs hat, because I guess they thought I was going to buy a Spreewell or Allen Houston jersey or something, but not that side, man. It was Spurs hats. It was one of my coolest pieces of memorabilia that I ever had. But funny story I wanted to share with you.
That's awesome.
Being from San Antonio and all that, you know.
I'll tell you, the best deal I got on some Spurs hats was again, I was touring with Jake the Snake Roberts, and we were in Cincinnati, I think, and there was a random lids there, and they had the $5 section, and there was just Spurs hat, Spurs hat, Spurs hat. And I just went in there, I was like, give me all of these. And the guy's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm from San Antonio. These are like $40 a piece back home. And he's like, yeah, I get it. And I made out like a bandit.
How much were they running about per hat?
Those were like $5 that they in Cincinnati, you know, because it's like, who gives a shit about the Spurs in Cincinnati?
Well, right, exactly, right.
Yeah, and I was like, give me all of them. So I picked out designs, and I'm like, I wouldn't pay 40 for it, but I'll pay 5.
5, yeah, you're willing to do a lot of different things for that cheap price. And one last Spurs thing I got to get on before the next point.
Yeah.
You know, me being the big LeBron fan I am, how difficult was it to see? They basically had the Larry O'Brien trophy rolled onto the court. Finals 2013. Ray Allen hits that dagger. Going in, I think that was game 6, right? Led them to a game 7. They ended up winning. How difficult was that as a Spurs fan? Seeing you basically had championship in the bag. You got them back the following season, Miami, but 2013 was yours.
I remember it vividly because I think it was a Thursday night,
right,
where Miami did win, and of just being like, you know, dejected, heartbroken. And I remember the city was like, because that's all we have in San Antonio. It's like, it's the Spurs, bro.
Right.
You know, and the whole city was like in a slump. I was supposed to headline supposed to. This is where the story goes. The next day, I was supposed to headline a show, and both shows were canceled because just like no one showed up. Everybody was just like, hey man, we're staying in, or we're getting drunk somewhere to commiserate.
It was a time of mourning. Right?
Yeah, it was like, and I'm like, I get it, you know, like,
yeah, you understand. Yeah.
And it, you know, it does kind of like, and it's weird, like when you perform in San Antonio, you love and hate the Spurs because you're like, okay, that's my team, I love them. But you know, if the Spurs are playing, ain't nobody coming out to a comedy show. They don't give a shit, you know, unless like Fluffy is playing, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Then people will come out. But like if you're going up against a Spurs playoff game, like, yeah, your show's gonna, like, the numbers are gonna tank.
So needless to say, home games at least, you got their schedule pulled up as you're doing your bookings for the upcoming weeks and months. Try to be like, oh, this isn't a good night. This may or may not work.
Yeah, there's been other times where you know, when I'm producing a show, the booking has bit me in the ass. I remember I booked a comedy show the same night as the Mayweather McGregor fight.
Oh.
Yeah, I took a hit on that one.
August 2017, right? I believe that was something like that, right?
No, I think it was before I moved. So wasn't it May 2016 or May?
I know Pacquiao and Mayweather was in
that's the one.
Yeah,
maybe it was that one.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
May
it was definitely because it was in May.
15. May of 15, yes, May of 15.
Yeah, I took a bath on that one, and I was like, okay.
Oh man.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take your lumps,
you live
right?
and you learn.
How did you get your start in comedy? I've been meaning to ask you this.
I I just always loved comedy. Like I was one of those kids. I'd come home and spoiled suburban kid. Had my TV in my room with cable, and I would just have it on Comedy Central all the time. And I just always loved comedy. Always loved laughing. Always loved making my friends laugh. And
Right.
and of course, I was a big kid, so people would try to pick on me, and then I'd snap back at them real quick. And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, all right. So I just always enjoyed comedy, and then just being told of like, oh man, you're funny, you should do Saturday Night Live, or hey, you should do comedy, this and that. And then I never really, I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And then I'd watch like Last Comic Standing, and people are like, oh my god, you need to be on that show. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then finally I just I started looking into him, like, what is it, all right, how do you become a stand-up comic?
Right.
And so you go to open mics. So I started writing my own jokes and going to open mics, and I would go to an open mic and I'd have like my index card, and I'm just kind of like, okay, and just read a joke and then look up, read a joke and then look up,
Right.
for what I was doing. And just kept getting better at it, made some friends, and then they would tell me where the other open mics are, because I started out at the comedy club in San Antonio that's no longer open anymore, the River Center.
Was that your first gig over there?
That was the first club I worked at, and the first
Okay.
club where they gave me a paycheck.
Okay.
And so I didn't consider myself a comedian until I got a paycheck from a comedy club.
That's fair.
Before then, I was like, oh, I do comedy, but you like, your friends are like, oh, this guy's a stand-up comic, and I'm like, I do comedy. But then when I got my first week as an MC, and you get a check, it has your name on it, it has the club logo, then you're like, oh, this is real, so that took about 2 years from starting as an open micer to like getting a check at the club. That was about 2 years, and I was kind of like, probably that first year I was kind of half-assing it. I would just kind of like show up, do it, da da da. And it wasn't until somebody like pulled me aside and they go, hey man, you could be really good at this if you like applied yourself. And you get in what you put out, or you get out what you put in. And so I just went, all right. I was working at Circuit City at the time. Circuit City took a dive right before they declared bankruptcy. I was, again, this is the second time or unemployment, or this is the first time
The
unemployment.
first time.
So I was a full-time right before they went under.
Right.
And so Circuit City went under. I got a pretty decent severance package. And then unemployment. And then I was just like, I was living at home still,
Sure.
26, 27. And I just applied myself to comedy and just would go to open mics and work on my stuff, work on my act. And then within a year, I won my first comedy competition at my home club. I won Funniest in South Texas, 2010. And I won a big ass trophy. I won a $500 check.
Nice.
And I remember a week before that, my dad was like, so how long are you going to give this comedy thing?
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
I don't know, Dad. Like, I love doing it. Like, I love performing comedy. Like, I just love it. And he goes, okay. And then a week later, I won the check, and I was like, and he's like, all right, move out. And I go, okay, that's fair.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, Circuit City, that reminds me. They went under around early 2008, I believe, because I was working at a Dick's Sporting Goods around the time, and right next to us was a Circuit City. And I was like, damn, I never even got to go next door. I had like just gotten this job at Dick's Sporting Goods, and before I knew it, blink of an eye, they went under. But that's incredible, man. That really is.
Yeah.
So do you have like a pre-show ritual or routine before going on? And before you answer that, would you say that, like you mentioned, the wise asses and the bullies early on, did that help attribute to your quick wit? Like just having a comeback for them? Do you think that helped at all?
Absolutely. Like and it was, I wouldn't get bullied too much. It was more they would try, and then I'd get them back, and then I would just kind of just make everybody else laugh, and they're like, oh yeah, all right, Kool Aid's cool. And even how I got the nickname Kool Aid was I was almost bullied, but I kind of just turned it around, because I was wearing a red shirt and it was snug on me.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, I look and feel like the Kool Aid man. They're like, huh, yeah, what's up, Kool Aid? All right, Kool Aid. And I was like, there's worse things to be called. It's got the word
Yeah,
cool in it.
you got that right. That's not a bad start.
Yeah, and then even before we moved to the States, I was kind of a military brat because my dad worked for the stores that are on base.
Okay.
So we lived in Germany. One of the big things that we lived off base. One of the big things that I had was we'd drink a lot of Kool Aid because a lot of the German kids, my friends, would come over and they would always ask for Kool Aid. So my mom would make Kool Aid for me and my German friends, and so I just always have good memories associated with Kool Aid.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
rich history. Yeah.
yeah, and then here I moved to San Antonio in 94, and then I think I got the nickname like 96, 97.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just been Kool-Aid since then, and now I got all these tchotchkes and stuff around me. Like you could see the Kool-Aid bead art that's right above me, and
I do see that. Yes.
yeah, and I got different things that people send me. Like this was sent to me. This was given to me by he used to be a comic, but now he's a referee for promotion in Texas, Ben Scheinberg. And he was in that viral video that was taken in Vegas with the Michael Jackson wrestler.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
So he was the referee in that video.
I'll have to check that out after the show now again, and have to look at that. So you have a routine? You have a routine before going on?
I just kind of like to take a couple minutes of just like I'll separate myself, or I'll just go kind of into a corner and just kind of get a couple quiet moments and just kind of like go over, all right, what am I going to start with, or what jokes do I want to work on? So if anything, like 2-3 minutes of just like, hey, alone chill time. But then there's been other times where I'm like, yeah, oh shit, they're saying my name. All right, let me get up there.
Right.
So it just kind of depends on where I'm at in the show. Sometimes I'll have a drink, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll have a drink on stage, but
it's all situational, depending upon maybe the crowd, the audience, the vibe, the night, whatever you're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
Take the edge off maybe a little bit, depending on the topics.
Read the crowd and see what they kind of react to. If it's an early show, like lately, what I've been doing is a lot of 6 p.m. shows with a magician. And so for that, you kind of have to stay clean because it's still like early in the day. You get a lot of old folks. So I can't be doing all my like cocaine and pussy jokes,
Right.
I
just picture it being like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you're just completely ripped.
Oh yeah, no.
Like what's up with this guy, man? Like what happened? He's been
3 a.m. I'll be ripped, but not 3 p.m.
How what would you consider to be the perfect amount of time for a set? Like what are your sets usually go for?
It just depends on where I'm at on the show. Like if I'm hosting and emceeing a show, especially in Vegas, they want all the shows to be an hour 10 because they want people to go back out and gamble. Usual show at a comedy club in the Midwest or out east would be, usually 70 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
You don't want a comedy show to go on longer than a movie. But then you got some ego stroking comics. I won't mention names. Carlos Mencia, Eddie Griffin. They have those guys, Mike Epps. They'll do 2 and 3 hours in a set. And to them, it's like, hey, man, my fans paid good money to see me, and I'm going to give them a show. Sure. But for everybody else that's working behind the scenes in a comedy club, it's like, we get it. We have to do the next show. What are you doing? You're pissing people off waiting for the next one,
Yeah, it's inconsiderate.
Yeah, and I've always liked the whole, keep them wanting more, So I rather, if they want me to do 45 minutes, I'll do 45. But sometimes I'll do 40 and just be like, all right, then I'll sell more CDs or sell more download codes or, things like that too. But then sometimes I'm having such a good time on stage, I don't want it to end. And then I go.
Yeah, that's more than you would have liked to go. It reminds me of us being big pro wrestling fans as we are. How about the Attitude Era, where I think it was done perfectly. You only had your 2 hours of Raw or Warzone, and at the end, something crazy would always be happening, and they left you on the edge of your seat. JR or somebody yelling, "Well, we'll see you next time," or see you next week, and you couldn't wait to tune in for that next episode. Similar fashion, like you said, kind of keep them waiting and wanting for more. This way, when you're back to that city, that town, that venue, they come back, they want to buy your merch, all that stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then the way you get the staff on your side is all right, I want everybody to put some money in the air. You hold up that money, you put it on the table, because that's for staff, because we're making them stay. If I'm going to do another 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes. They don't get to drink or, go home or do whatever. So
Sure.
you make it worth their while. And then people go, all right, let's take out a couple extra bucks. And then that way the staff is like, all right, we're going to be here another 15 minutes, but I could go home with another 40, 50 bucks. And it's not,
And that's huge, though. That little gesture
yeah.
is just you being considerate. Not only is that good for you, wherever
Because I've been
in
on the other
future-
side, I've been the door
Exactly.
guy.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. And you work your way up in whatever which way, and morale. You want to keep morale good and keep everybody happy. You know what I mean? Even if they got to grin and bear it, they'll say, at least we'll make it worthwhile,
One of my favorite things, and I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations is over, but I wasn't a door guy until after I was a comic, and I would work the door for special events. So when Ralphie May would come through, Carlos Mencia, like big names, DL Hughley, when they would come through and sell out the place, I'd work the door because I knew if the staff made money, I could sell them more weed. And at the time, I was selling hella weed that I was getting in from Colorado. Sure. And so I'd come in with cargo pants on, with different almost like sauce cups, where you get the little cups of 1 ounces or 2 ounces for sauces. Sure. And I'd have like 1 gram, 2 grams, eighths, and different pockets. And then I knew, like, if the staff was making money and they're like, Kool Aid, hook me up. So I would get paid to be on the clock doing the door. I would get paid selling weed. And then this was another hustle I did was people would come in and out of the comedy club to go use the restroom, right? So the main room to the restroom. And my job was to mark the hand. And so they're like, oh, I'm just going to go use the restroom. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me your business. And I'd mark their hand. But then on their way out, I'd be like, oh, by the way, I'm drinking Miller Lite. And I would say that to, let's say in one show, I say that to 60 people. Sure. Probably 1 out of 10 would buy me a Miller Lite.
There you go.
And so I then I would be getting ripped.
You got a 6-pack right there,
and then I would get so many, I would give them to the other comics that were with me, or I'd put them off to the side. And then when they had to do the room change, the manager's like, what are those 4 beers right there? I'm like, oh, don't worry about those. He goes, no, let's get rid of them. And I go, no, those are full. And they go, and then the word got out about my hustle, and they're like, no, you can't do that. I go, am I not generating sales for the bar?
Right. What's the problem?
Yeah, but you can't be drinking on the job. And I'm like, this job?
Should be like, it's Miller Lite, man. I'm not asking for scotch or hard liquor, come on.
Yeah, I'm just like,
Miller Lite.
I'm just drinking some beers, man.
Right.
This is for morale, man. Come on.
It's all coming back to morale.
The experience.
Right. So all a part of the Kool Aid experience, if you will. Yeah. Man, you had it down pat, man. You were multitasking like a son of a gun. I picture you with some big cargo Jabot jeans on. It's got about 16 pockets. And you're willing it. I thought when you talked about the bathroom, I thought you were going to tell me that you were then the paper towel guy handing out the mints and the bubble gum and the cologne too.
No, the last person you want to see in a bathroom is me, because it's like, wait, did you just use it or are you about to? So like you don't want to see me in
people consider that to be dangerous or lethal either way, right?
Yeah, it's I get why people like I've tried to make this into a bit. I go, I'm not scared of public restrooms, really, because I know what people are scared of. They're scared of people like me using them. And to me, it's like, are sharks scared of other sharks? No, because they're fucking sharks, That's the way I feel like when I use a public restroom.
Now it's all starting to make sense, because in the beginning I didn't quite understand completely when you were talking about Legion Stadium in Vegas and the phobia about going to a NFL game, but now I understand. Like even at the local joint comedy club, I understand why you're still leery about making your way in there. So now let's get to your favorite moment as a comedian. Do you have one in particular that comes to mind?
Man, there's a lot. I remember the first night where I really where I felt like I crushed, where I'm like, holy shit, that was different from all the other times that I performed.
Like, I'm doing this. Yeah.
And because I remember the guy who went before me was this real cocky Austin comic, which when you're in San Antonio, Austin is like, oh, that's the cool older brother. And oh man, everything Austin does is so cool. And they're so hip and they're so trendy. And they would come, these Austin guys would come down to San Antonio and eat shit and then complain about my city and about how dumb we are. We don't get Joe. And it's like, nah, dude, you ain't funny, bro. Like in Austin, people are like, oh, tell us jokes. We love comedy. In San Antonio, it's like, yo, are you funnier than the Spurs game? Are you funnier than the pregnant, waitress? Are you funnier than the UFC fight? Like, you got to come with it. San Antonio's blue collar.
Right.
Austin is just like, oh, we support the arts and da, and we're so progressive. And, and in San Antonio, it's like, fucking, hey, go do your shit. Be funny,
Right.
So this one guy who went up before me, and because the first day I did comedy, I had a bad experience in Austin, and that kind of like soured me on Austin. But so anyway, the guy ahead of me was like, yeah, I should probably call an ambulance now because I'm going to kill it so hard and blah, blah, blah. And I just went, oh, okay. Like, all right. Hey, man, have fun, buddy. He goes up there and just like stinks up the room and just takes a big old shit. And then he gets off stage and he's like, I don't know what's wrong with this crowd, right? And I go up there and I fucking flip that shit 180. And I do this joke hits, this joke's hit, and it's getting bigger. And this is a midnight showcase. So some of these crowds already watched 2 shows and then they stuck around for the free midnight one. And, it's super late. People are getting drunk and just like boom, boom. And I have the audio recording on my YouTube. I wish I had video, but it's audio recording. And it's just like building and building. Boom, I get a heckler. I shut them down. And, boom, 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 and I close on a big high note. And then when the host was like, guys, give it up for Kool Aid, everybody was like, yeah, Kool Aid. And then my heart was pounding. And everybody just looked at me like I was glowing, like not like pregnant glowing, which I know that's what I look like, but like glowing godlike, like, oh, angels singing glowing. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Whoa, that felt awesome. And
That's
then
incredible, man.
yeah, and then like when touring with Jay, getting some of those standing ovations. I remember were you there at that show at the Gramercy?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a little bit, but yes, certainly. I was at that Gramercy show in 2016.
Yeah, getting that applause break, and I a couple of people stood up too for me, which I was blown away by, and I'm like, guys, no, the main guy's coming up. Like, sit down.
I actually remember that. I remember that vividly. Now that you brought that up, you did get a great reaction in New York City. Yeah.
And because some of my harder, edgier stuff in New York was just like, oh my God, we love this style of humor. They're like just very in your face, super punchy, joke driven. Whereas, some of the other places I go to, West Coast or, Seattle didn't like me. That's fine. But New York, I think every show we did in the tri-state area was just like, where have you been, man? How come we haven't heard of you? Who are you?
Where are you from?
Yeah, exactly. And I go, you didn't hear my act? I'm from Texas, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I remember vividly, man, because I was there by myself. I had a couple rum and cokes, and I thought you were great, man. Obviously, I was just so excited to see Jake, but I was like, wow, we get him too. And I was like, when they announced, Alex Kool Aid, Ansel, I was like, you knocked it out the park.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
I think you saw that show and then you mentioned it when we met at that convention, right?
That was how, a couple of months later, I had met you in Queens, actually, and never would have known prior to that.
Yeah, it was nuts really getting recognized there, too. That was like,
cool. I called your name in the lobby. You're like, wait, who's yelling Kool Aid? Because I was telling my friend Michelle, and she's like, she's even like, who's Kool Aid? I was like, Kool Aid just walked in, and she's thinking, were you drinking?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, man, I saw you, and we sat down. We had a great time that night.
Yeah, and there was a couple other people that they're like, I saw you in Virginia, with Jake. Or I saw you in this place with Jake, and I'm like, That's awesome. So that's one of my top moments. And then I did for a while for 3 weeks. I had my own show here in Vegas, and it was like a one-man show. I did have 2 girls that would do some dances and stuff for me to do a wardrobe change because it is Vegas. You can't just do one-man show and tell jokes for an hour. So it was called Squeezed. What was it called? Squeezed, the funny side of losing weight. Because I talked about my whole experience of doing DDP yoga and juicing and exercising and losing weight. And I would do like a song and dance number to bring up, to get up to the stage.
Yeah.
The girls would take my jacket off,
Nice.
And then I did about 35 minutes of jokes. And then I bring the girls back up to do a dance routine. I'd go and change into a velour sweatsuit. And then I would go and do like another 35 minutes of jokes.
We need pictures, man. We need video.
They're out there.
They're
check
surfacing.
So and that lasted, like I said, it lasted about 3 weeks. I kind of knew, like, on the way up of I was like, I don't think this is gonna last, but I'm gonna have fun with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so like I didn't want to try to be a diva or like, try to tell, or because I was pretty new to the Vegas scene when I first that was about 2018 when I got the show. So I've been in Vegas like a year and a half, and they only knew me as, oh, that's that guy that tours with a wrestler. Oh, he's from Texas, he's funny, blah blah blah. And then they're like, this guy's been here for 10 minutes, he has his own show on the Strip. What the fuck,
Right.
So I kind of knew, like, I don't think this is gonna last long. So it's like one of those things. Everybody you see on your way up, you see on your way down.
Right.
And I almost didn't announce anything to a lot of my comedy friends out here until it was like the week of the show. And I go, hey, I know you guys have been wondering what I've been doing with these dance classes and why I'm on the studio recording a music track. I have my own show and we're launching this Friday. And they're like, what the shit? They're like, Kool Aid, why didn't you tell anybody? And I'm like,
out of nowhere. Yes. Surprise, baby.
And so that was and then opening night, of course, what do I do when I go up the steps? Fucking biff it and hit my knee on one of the steps.
Oh no.
But the show must go on,
As they say.
And then let's see. And then man, just whenever I just get that insane reaction, or my favorite reaction, is like, I know I do well, I'll get off stage and I'm just like, hey, that was okay, right? And people are like, are you, like, what's wrong with you? You did fantastic, like everybody. And I just go, I have no sense of, like, I can't really gauge for myself. And
sure.
One of the things that Cody, Jake's daughter, would get mad at me for was, we're doing all these shows and I would record every night and I'd be like, oh, I messed up this joke, or I messed up the timing on that. Oh, I should have done this better. And she's like, you're way too hard on yourself. Like you crushed, you killed, you did great.
Right.
And I'm like, I should have done this different. And she's like, you need to cut yourself some slack. And I'm like, you got to be your harshest critic,
I was just going to say that because, it's that Monday morning quarterback, it's just going over everything, that perfectionist in you. And I understand that, there's always something you feel, even though they may not notice it, and it's bothering you, even though 99% of it was probably great. There's that 1%. It's like, damn, next time I'm going to make sure I execute. But
there were, and I think a lot of that rubbed off on Jake because I was the comic he watched a lot, because he would watch me to see how the crowd would react to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of noticed some of my, I want to say, like, some of my DNA of my joke telling style, or like maybe my stage presence or whatnot, whatever you want to call it. I was like, oh, I could see like little hints of myself in his performance,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's good. He's absorbing, because if you watch somebody that's good at something, you're eventually going to take some subliminal, notes and things of like what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And it was fun just watching Jake get better and better and better at it too. Now, do I wish he would have given me a shout out on Rogan? Yes.
Oh,
did he? No, but
come on, Jake. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Now when was he on Rogan? Because I had missed that.
It was after we parted. So I want to say he was on Rogan in probably 2018, maybe 2017, 2018. Because Rogan was notorious for, like, because he's such an MMA guy, he hates pro wrestlers. but I think like DDP kind of swung him around, and he was on there. So I think like after having DDP on there and seeing like, oh, okay, no, these dudes, go through some hardcore shit. That he did have Jake on there.
Yeah.
And Jake was talking about, doing comedy and this and that. And I'm like, uh-huh.
And
who helped you? And
right. Yeah, so, that would have been nice. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So, and I would help with his set too, obviously, because I'm like, I want him to do better. And now, it's like he's such a great storyteller that he really didn't need an opener or whatever. But I think it was good for him to like be around a comic that can be like, oh, okay, hey, move this part over here. Just kind of like with the structural, almost like
I was going to say that you being around day in, day out, week in, week out, learning from you, it kind of helped him mold everything together, give him direction. He's like, I got all these stories. Now, how can I put maybe a funnier spin on it and, know how long I should be speaking about each said topic and so
absolutely on. And then the other thing too is like I learned a lot from him,
right?
Of the way I was described Jake to people that because I've gotten to work with other wrestlers turned public speakers, not necessarily comics, and some of them are better than others. But with Jake, I always said because in the movements in wrestling, you almost have to exaggerate, how slow you're going sometimes too, because people in the rafters have to see what you're doing as well. So the way I looked at it is like Jake could tell a whole story without saying a word. So it's almost like giving a ninja a machine gun. If you give Jake a microphone to tell a story, you're taking something that's deadly and you're making it deadlier. So I'm glad that, Jake has, definitely gotten better. And, cause that's who I want to be affiliated with, is somebody that is getting better and that is, performing well and, getting rebooked in places and whatnot. And then there's other wrestlers that are like, all right, I wrote these jokes, I'm going to read them off. And it's, God bless Raven. All right. I worked with him, did a couple shows with him in Texas, and we had different comedy goals.
Okay.
So after our first show, he goes, hey, what'd you think of my jokes? And I go, it seemed like you were just reading tweets. I'm like, are they yours? And he's like, yeah, I wrote all those. And I go, okay, there's some things we need to kind of address and work on. And, again, mechanically move some of the words around, things like that.
Yeah.
And I go, a lot of it's kind of cringy and just kind of like, very like groan inducing. And he goes, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. And I go, no, man, they're called comedy clubs, not groan clubs, not cringe clubs, like we.
Right.
So, but he, that's one thing. And then Rob Van Dam, he's gotten a lot better since the first time I saw him.
Sure.
First time I saw him, it was like he was like doing bits, and I'm like, why are you not talking about wrestling? Like I'm such a wrestling mark. This is why I want to go see a wrestler do stand-up, because I want to hear great stories. Maybe just because I was spoiled by Jake and, hanging out with him and hearing all these great stories and then hearing the stories get better and better. Right. But then recently when I've got to work with Rob, he's kind of put more of himself in his stand-up.
Good.
He tells some of these stories and I'm like, so much better. So
well, that's what we want to hear, because like probably not even a year after I had seen you and Jake the Snake Roberts, I went to a show probably 20 minutes away from my hometown. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was there. His was somewhat comedic, a lot of real storytelling. He had some, funny innuendos and stuff, but bottom line, like you said, with RVD, you want to hear about them, and Jim Duggan did a good job with doing that. Mentioned many stories, even with Jake, Macho Man, Andre the Giant. And that's what we paid the price of admission for. We wanted to hear that. And I think that's
give the fans what they want.
Exactly right. We, get a picture 8x10 afterwards, but we want to hear that live up front in person.
Yeah. One of the big complaints I would hear is like, if I'm going to go see Mankind, I don't give a shit what he thinks about Hillary Clinton. You know what I mean?
Right.
I could care less.
Yeah.
I want to hear about, dude love stuff. I want to hear about Hell in a Cell.
Hell in a Cell 1998 being thrown 20, 30 feet off the steel cage.
Yeah, I don't care about your politics. I don't. Oh, you got a new car? Okay, great. Oh,
Right.
or fine, whatever. But
Holy fully, man. I'm telling you. So I want to get into a couple of other things. I know you're into Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. Real quick, Raphael.
mostly Ninja Turtles.
Mostly Ninja Turtles, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Donatello. Of course, we have Splinter, Shredder, Krang. Are you an April O'Neil guy?
Yeah. Of course.
Who's your favorite turtle?
Oh, Raphael for sure.
Me too, bro. Me too.
Yeah.
I guess maybe hence the red. I'm wearing your Kool Aid merchandise here.
Yeah.
I like everything red, man.
These are my Ninja Turtle Doc Martens.
Wow,
I have all awesome. 4 pairs. So these are a little dusty. These are the Raphaels, right?
And I like the slime on the sides. It kind of reminds me of almost like that Outsiders Scott Hall look. Dripping down.
Oh yeah. And then here's one of the Michelangelos. And again, I bought these when I was selling drugs in Texas, weed mostly, and these were $150 a piece. So
wow.
But hey, they'll last me forever. And then
they're
I got
nice,
the other
man. Yeah, Michelangelo is my second favorite. Obviously, he's a big pizza lover like myself, man.
Yeah.
All right, and you like Power Rangers a little bit, not nearly as much as the Ninja Turtles. I agree with you on that. Who do you like Power Rangers?
Man, here's my thing. So when I'd go to school, they would play Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers, and I'm like, nah, man, I'm a Ninja Turtle fan. Power Rangers, that's for kids. And I was like 10, you know what I mean? And I was so judgmental. I was like, oh, that's just people in spandex. How's that armor?
Right.
Turtles make sense. Duh. Power Rangers to me don't make sense.
Yeah, very good point, man. Very good. They've had about 10 different variations of them too.
And then it's hard to keep track of, and it was so deeply rooted in like Japanese television that I was like, okay, because it would change from season to season. It would just be kind of hard to keep track of, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really care about this. And then that's when I discovered, I'm like, oh, every episode is the same. Okay, here's a guy in a suit, make my monster grow, and then they fight, and then
Putty Patrol comes out. Yeah. They usually in the lunchroom. Yep.
So the logo that you see behind me is for nerdcore comedy, which is something my buddy and I, Mike Suarez, would do. Is we would perform at conventions, at anime conventions, comic book conventions, and we would do material specific for nerds. So we would do Star Wars, Star Trek, Game of Thrones, video games, anime, manga. We would all the stuff we can't do in nightclubs and comedy clubs. We would do material for nerdcore, and we've been able to do a couple of shows out here in Vegas as well. Luckily, Vegas has like nerd themed, geek themed bars out here, and so we've been able to do some shows out here. But hopefully, with like conventions and everything picking back up, we can bring back nerdcore comedy.
That sounds pretty damn cool. And again, for those that can see this, that sign back there is pretty rad, man. Pretty awesome sign you got back there. So you don't have a favorite Power Ranger, just to be clear. I
guess the Green Ranger or White Ranger.
I was just gonna say Tommy. He was like the cool cat, the White and Green Ranger at first.
Yeah, the long hair.
Yeah. He was just like, if I could make that decision today here in 2021, that would be my choice. But 25 years ago or whatever, I of course stuck with the whole red theme, much like Raphael. I went with Jason. Definitely wouldn't be my pick today though. So.
I did like the remake they made a couple of years ago, the reboot where it's all gritty and hardcore.
Never saw it.
Yeah,
good.
I thought it was pretty cool.
So here we go. Pro wrestling, right? This is what the people want. Save the best for last, right? Here we go, bro. You got your Eddie Guerrero t-shirt on.
Hell yeah.
How and when did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
How and when? So probably middle school. So for me, that's like 96, 97.
Okay.
And just from like hanging out with these group of friends that we would just talk wrestling, and we would make it a point, or I would try to make it a point of like, Mom, Dad, on Tuesday mornings, you got to drop me off extra early so I could talk wrestling with my friends. Because we would talk about what happened the Monday night, from Monday night before.
Yeah.
We would talk about Raw, we would talk about Nitro. And so the whole like Raw Nitro thing got me hooked, and like DX got me hooked, Stone Cold, of course. And then the other thing that helped was, the Royal Rumble that took place in San Antonio, that helped because one of my grade school friends is the nephew of Shawn Michaels. And I was like, shut the fuck up. You're, like I didn't tell him this. I was like, oh yeah, Shawn Michaels is your uncle. Okay. Sure enough, what do? I rent the Royal Rumble from Blockbuster, watch it on tape. And who does Shawn Michaels hug in the front row after winning the title?
No way.
This kid that's in my class. And I went, all right.
That's right. HBK from, right? San Antonio.
Yep. And that's
right.
That's a big reason why HBK, of course, one of my all-time favorites. And I did see him one time in a post office. Oh, that's funny. You're a post. There you go. I saw him in a post office, and he was in front of me. I was there with my mom, and I'm like, Mom, that's that wrestler, Shawn Michaels. I want to go say hi. And my mom is, German, and she's just, I don't know if it's like some weird old country superstition or whatever. She's like, no, you don't talk to people while they're handling money. Okay, you leave him alone, okay? And I was like, I knew it was him. He had the sunglasses, he had the heart tattoo barely, peeking out. I was like, that's him.
That's legit. Yeah.
Michaels. And she's like, no, you don't bother people when they are handling money. I'm like, okay. And I just went, all right. So that's like one of my things now is like,
that's cool, man. And what year was this about when you saw him in the post office?
So this was again middle school. So I want to say like 96, 97.
Right, going into the Attitude Era. That's a great time to start becoming a fan too, with the NWO and DX and.
He visited our football. He would visit our football practices too in middle school. So when I was at Ed White Middle School, I only played a little bit in 8th grade. And then I was like, you know what? My heart's not in football. Like I was always way more into art,
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna save my hands for that. But
hell of a story. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
We would watch Raw and Nitro, right? And then I was always I was like a WWF, WWE kid. Like I was like, that's my shit. That's what I watch. And my mom, bless her heart, she came home one day from JCPenney and she goes, Alex, I got you some wrestling t-shirts. They were on sale and they had them in your size. Because again, when you're a fat kid, you can't really just pick out what you want to wear. You gotta wear what they have in your size. And so my mom found all these cheap wrestling t-shirts, but they were all like WCW. And I'm like, but I didn't have the heart to like be like, Mom, these are I was pretty spoiled, but I was it's my mom, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, these are the wrong one. I never did that. I went, oh, thank you. And I just wore them anyway.
You're just like grateful for it. Hey, Mom, this is a Alex Wright t-shirt. What are we doing here?
I mean, I do have a photo of me somewhere. I'll have to upload it again. But it's like, it's a NWO red and black, like Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner shirt.
All right.
I don't really like Scott Steiner, but I still wore the shirt, One of them was a Bam Bam Bigelow shirt.
Oh, I would have liked that, actually. I like Bam Bam.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, but I just thought it was really sweet that she's like, hey, you like wrestling? I got you these wrestling shirts. I'm like, thank you, Mom.
Very thoughtful. It's not Shawn Michaels or DX, but we'll take it.
Exactly. So, I'd still wear it.
Who would you consider your favorite wrestler growing up, or even to this day? We have one that comes to mind.
I mean, right now, of course, like I'm still Bo Dallas diehard. And
yes, that's right. Bo Dallas all day, every day.
Hold on. There we go. If you watch my stream on Twitch, I always bust this out to like show off to people. So I mean, he was, of course he's my favorite as far as like underdog characters,
Sure. Yeah.
But
he had a hell of a run in NXT champion, by the way, many years ago. What, 9 years ago?
Yeah, and that's what got me back into wrestling, because from like 2002 when I stopped, after I graduated high school, I kind of stopped giving a shit about wrestling. So I missed a lot of the John Cena stuff. I missed a lot of the ruthless aggression, all that. Like I took a break from wrestling from like 2002 to 2014. And then I got a roommate in Texas who got me back into wrestling. And then 2015 is when I started touring with Jake, and my buddy had the network, and he goes, all right, well, it's easier for you to get into NXT than everything that's going on in the current roster. So we started watching NXT, and I just loved Bo Dallas's voice of like, believe. It was so easy to make fun of.
Yeah.
And then he just became our guy, So my roommate and I were like, this is our guy. And we named our cat, because we're co-dads of a cat.
Sure.
We named our cat Bo Leave.
Wow.
Yeah, like we were about it, bro.
You were all in. You were all in on this.
I used to have 2 Believe shirts. I don't know what happened to the first one, but I still have and then I bought, when we got more roommates in that house, I bought them all Believe shirts, and so we had 4 of us. We would go to local wrestling shows. Right. All of us in Believe shirts, and they're like,
that's great.
Who the fuck are these guys?
That's not something you see every day at all.
Yeah, exactly. 4 guys in Believe shirts. Hell no.
You're lucky to see 1 guy in a Believe shirt. Never mind the 4. But I agree with you. Incredibly underrated. Being the fact that I know Bo Dallas was let go last year. Unfortunately, his brother Bray Wyatt was let go a few months ago. The fact that they are actually real life brothers too. Do you think Bo Dallas should have ever been a member of the Wyatt family? Would you have liked to see that?
Absolutely. I think that would have been cool. People ask me all the time of like, what's your wrestling Mount Rushmore? Right. And I go, NXT Bo Dallas, Believe Bo Dallas, Social Outcast Bo Dallas, BT Bo Dallas.
Hey, they were tag team champions, him and Curtis Axel.
Yeah,
right.
And absolutely. And actually, I was in San Antonio. I was at that Raw. It was January 2016 where they debuted the Social Outcasts.
That was Adam Rose,
Heath Slater, yeah, and
Curtis
then
Axel and Bo Dallas.
Curtis Axel, yeah, and Bo Dallas, and because I remember my buddy got tickets. Right, we were in the 5th row behind the announcers. Right. I borrowed my roommate's big wrestling belt, the WCW one, and while I was waiting for a ride to go to the stadium, people are like, "Are you a pro wrestler?" And I go, "No, I'm just a fat guy with a belt. I'm just a fan." And they're like, "Oh." So I was like, we got to get there early because they're going to do the dark matches or the matches for main event for whatever else, right?
Superstars, yeah.
Yeah, for superstars right before. I was like, Bo Dallas might wrestle. We got to get there early. So we get there early, and there's like a Tyler
Breeze?
Yeah.
Tyler Breeze.
I'll just say Febreze. I don't know why. There's a Tyler Breeze match going on. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so we're just patiently waiting, just like, okay. And then so somebody else's music plays, but then Bo Dallas is on the ramp, and because I'm like, is it gonna be? And then my buddy's like, look, Bo's right there, and then I like stand up, and I lock eyes with him, and I knew he saw me because I'm big as shit, and like when you have not BO, but BO on your shirt, it looks like the number 80. And then I'm like, we locked eyes, and I was like, oh,
that's cool. That's cool.
And that was when the 4 of them came out. I forgot who wrestled. It wasn't Bo. And I was just like, oh my God. And then my friend got a picture of me reacting. He got my genuine reaction of me like,
that made it all worth it. It was all worthwhile at that point, man.
Oh, for sure.
You could have went home at that point.
Yeah. And then I think that night I picked up one of the New Day unicorn things, the glowing unicorn things. Because I'm also a huge New Day mark.
A New Day is great. As you can see in the back here, I got the Bootios. I got the mini
I see that.
Many wrestlers over here. Would you consider that your favorite encounter with a pro wrestler? Or was it more so on the comedy side? Like you said, you've done a lot of shows with pro wrestlers. Or was it like at a show or convention?
Let's see. My favorite encounter with a pro wrestler. I would say that whole weekend that we met up, that I was at that convention, because at that there was one point where Jake took me by the hand. Basically, he took my camera. He took my badass big expensive Canon camera, and he just took me table to table. And he's like, "All right, get in there." And Jake took photos. And
I remember him walking around with that. Yeah, I remember him walking around.
And so the first photo I took was me, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash, and I'm just like, just like, and Scott Hall or Kevin Nash looks so annoyed because he's like, him and Jake, I guess, are kind of rocky or were at that point.
Okay.
And so he's just kind of like, but Scott Hall, recognized me from Jake's posts, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I reckon," and I'm like,
Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, the Diamond Stud, or whatever else he was called, recognizes me.
because well, you guys, I don't think convention goers were allowed to, but they would do breakfast for all the people that were in the convention in the like hotel part or in the convention center part early. And so Jake and I would go, and he's like, all right, hey, look, and he introduced me to everybody. He was like, oh, this is Fred Ottman. Do you know who Fred Ottman is? And I'm like,
Tugboat.
right. And he's like, oh, tugboat, you know, this. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, got you. You know, because again, some of those stuff was before my time, you know?
Right.
And so he introduced me to, and then of course, you know, like Bob Backlund and meeting, you know, some of these other people. I'm like,
I mean,
I'm just trying not to mark out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how hard is, you know, especially when you're getting these personal encounters. I mean, everybody like us and other fans were paying price of admission. You get, it's a long line. It's slow. You get an autograph. It's very brief. But when Jake is literally bringing you around to everybody, you're just trying to wrap your mind around meeting the outsiders. And here you are meeting Bob Backlund and so on and so forth. And
I got so many photos. Like you know, that's when I met Rob Van Dam, and I got a photo with him.
Sure.
And oh God, who was it? I'm trying to think. I'll remember. But I remember, I don't know why I said this, but I took a photo with Ryback, and I don't know what compelled me to be like, hey man, I tweeted some mean things about you, and I'm sorry. And he just looks at me and goes, don't worry about it, man. And I went, you know, like, why did I tell Ryback I tweeted horrible things about him? What is wrong with me?
At least I mean, that's one thing I think, whether they like to hear it or not, like you said earlier in the podcast, when I forget who you're talking about, but are you a Mark, or who's your favorite?
Yeah, Sid Bodie,
Sid Bodie, you're very blunt and honest, and I think they got to respect that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, ooh.
It's water under the bridge, right? We're good, right?
Yeah. And I got to meet, you know, I keep wanting to call him Johnny Mundo because that's when I first started watching him, was in Lucha Underground. But yeah, John Morrison.
Sure.
Got to meet. God, the only person I didn't get to meet because he was so secretive and so from the rest of the event was Bruno Sammartino.
Right, that was an awesome.
And so so I didn't get to meet him. Of course, I never got to meet Flair because Jake hates Flair.
Yeah, that's what I got. He's not really a fan of Flair, is he?
Yeah, and because Jake is like, I should be pulling in those numbers, and I go, yeah, you need to ask for those numbers. You need to be like, hey, pay me 50,000, you know. But then, yeah. So anyway, you know, and then hanging out, just like hanging out some of the behind the scenes stuff too, because we did a convention in Rhode Island, and I remember being in a car with badass Billy Gunn, Hornswoggle, Jake the Snake, and yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, because it was Jake the Snake up front, I'm in the back, Hornswoggle, and then badass Billy Gunn. And then in the lobby before that, I was, you know, it was us with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and then the guy who plays Principal Belding on Saved by the Bell. So I'm just like in this circle with all these people from my childhood, and I'm like,
you know, if I could just say for 2 seconds,
here?
Right? Like, this feels like literally like a dream. Like, you know, you have a random dream, and all these people show up, and you're in a car or you're in a lobby. It's like, how the hell did this happen? But this is something you actually lived, and it's pretty remarkable, to say the least.
Yeah. And then at that same Rhode Island convention, Jake and I were our ride, and then on the way, Kevin Eastman is walking towards his van to get picked up, and I'm like, oh my God, there's Kevin Eastman. I didn't get a chance to get away from Jake's table because I was sell merch and, you know, his autograph stuff, taking photos and whatnot. And Jake was having a cigarette, and I go, Jake, I'll be right back. And so I like literally bum rush Kevin Eastman, co-creator of Ninja Turtles. I'm wearing my, you know, my Doc Martens. I have a Ninja Turtle backpack, and I just go, I'm so sorry. I'm Jake the Snake. Can I just shake your hand? I wasn't able to get anything. He's like, of course. And I go, everybody that knows me knows I'm the biggest Ninja Turtle fan. I sent to me all the time. thank you so much. And he's like, thank you. And I go, you see shoes? And he's like, oh yeah, nice. I go, thank you. That's all I wanted to tell him was just thank you. And then I walked back to Jake, and Jake's like, what just happened? And I go, that guy. And because Jake would always make fun of me for having, being a Ninja Turtle fan, because I moved into his house and I had Ninja Turtle bed sheets on, like I had a Ninja Turtle comfort and Ninja Turtle pillowcases on the bed in his house. And he's like, oh, Jesus, how old are you? And so I went up to him and he's like, yeah, who is that? I go, that was Kevin Eastman. He's like, yeah. And I go, co-creator of the Ninja Turtles. And he goes, oh, Jesus Christ, did you cream your pants?
That is, dude, that's what an amazing experience. How priceless is that? I mean, to get that opportunity, like you said, just to thank him.
It's like that through one avenue of like, wrestling, another thing that I love. And then I got to meet somebody that, the only thing that could have capped it off any better was like, oh my God, I'm in the restroom. Here's Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy who made Zelda, Mario, and Donkey Kong.
Hey, we know how you and you're not wanting to go into bathrooms, or at least public bathrooms. So maybe not there, but maybe the parking lot or something. No, that's so cool though, man. I mean, how worlds just kind of collide all in that one thing. And that's why I love these conventions, not just even wrestling ones, these pop culture ones, these Comic Cons. You get to see all these actors and, like you said, creators even of shows and sitcoms, and then
you get to see them react. You get to see them react to hanging out with, like, you see a guy from Walking Dead and you're like, oh my, hey man, I love your character on the show, and then that actor is just like, shit, that's Jake the Snake Roberts. Oh God, I'm such a big fan. And you're like, I do Jake's social media. Can I get a photo of you two? And then I do that. Can I get with you real quick too?
Hey, you gotta pick your spots, right? You gotta
for sure. And Jake is like, oh, like, shut up, Jake. Like,
come on, let me have my moment, Jake. Damn. So I'm gonna take it to, as you alluded to before, August of 2016. I bought a ticket. It was SummerSlam weekend. I bought a ticket to the Gramercy Theater to see the Unspoken Word Tour. It was a Friday night. I remember vividly, with Jake Roberts, and who was also with Kool Aid. That's when I got to meet you. I remember prior to the show, I was at the Chipotle next door. I got there real early. I did not want to miss it. I got there like an hour and a half early. I'm over there, minding my business, eating Chipotle on my own, face to the street, because you never know who's going to show up in New York City, right?
Yeah.
So me and my Chipotle, minding my business. I see you get out of the car. At this time, I didn't know who you were. So I'm thinking, all right, maybe this guy, celebrity or something.
Which, hey, this is a big SUV, right?
Yeah, big old SUV. And I'm thinking, certainly we're a celebrity to some extent, because in my eyes, I was just like, wow. So then I see Jake the Snake Roberts come out in his friggin' infamous bright pink t-shirt. I know you've seen that on a few occasions. I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's Jake the Snake. And then I see you. So I got my Chipotle in one hand. I got a burrito. I'm walking up to the door. I got my cell phone out. And I actually started recording, like, you guys walking into the Gramercy. And I know you were looking at me, probably like, who is this fanboy Mark? And what is he doing? I mean, obviously at that point, you probably knew that I knew who Jake was. I got a nice 10, 20-second video somewhere on my computer still. And I was like, man, what a freaking moment. I was like, this is cool.
So when arriving to New York, to the Gramercy Theater, I kind of had that quintessential, almost like Law and Order New York moment of where our limo driver of, I want to say, Middle Eastern descent got into an argument with a cop of like Indian or Pakistani descent, and you're expecting, accents. The only thing that came out were thick New York accents. And if somebody who's not like used to that, it's just like, oh, this is very New York. Like just like, hey, you can't fucking park here. And I'm just dropping them off. And it's just like, I'm like,
sounds like New York City to me.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm like, this is just like TV, and then I get off, right, and there's a bus stop ad, and on there is Ninja Turtles on there, and I go, I'm in New York for 10 seconds, and I already see Ninja Turtles, and I go, I'm in the right spot.
I am home. So
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you what, man. Like I alluded to earlier, that show, the Unspoken Word Tour, you knocked it out of the park again. Opening up
Thank
for
you.
Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake did a great job, hearing some great stories, nostalgic WWF days, golden era. What I grew up on, watching since I was like 2 or 3 in the early '90s, late '80s.
Yeah.
Awesome freaking job. I see you 3 months later, like we said, Queens, New York, November of 2016. Again, I'm in the lobby with Michelle. I know Jake the Snake was one of the guests. I didn't know that you were going to be with him necessarily.
Mhm.
So when I'm in the lobby right by the bar there, me and Michelle getting ready to sit down and have a couple of beverages. I owe Kool Aid, and you looked out like, whoa, this is pretty cool, So and sure enough, once you checked in, did your thing, you sat with us, had a few drinks. I believe we sat with a guy from Pittsburgh who claimed he knew Bruno Sammartino on a personal level.
Yes, yeah. There was that that old rich guy. Yeah.
He showed us his Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup ring. He rode the Zamboni or something like that.
Yeah,
So
I remember that. Yeah.
we got a cool picture together, man. And that bar is good luck. Not only did I get to run into you, we had some fun. 2 years later, to the day almost, I was there again. This time I was with Michelle's brother, Kevin. I think you had met him as well.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting right across the bar from who else? Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, Kev. I was like, I want to say something, but I don't want to be that fanboy Mark, So I
Yeah.
see he's only drinking Miller Lite, whatever, just finished. I hear he goes to the bartender, I'll take another round. So I flagged the bartender down. I said, hey, next round's on me. Whatever he's drinking, Miller Lite, whatever.
Yeah.
For Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And she's like, yeah, she don't know who the hell Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is. So I said, get that man around. I said, super cool. He's like, for me, he that's how and you've met him, you've talked to him, had interactions. Incredibly humble individual. So very appreciative for the few dollar beer. Well, it should have been a few dollar beer. I think a Miller Lite there, it was probably $11. Could have bought a 6-pack elsewhere. But yeah, man, what a super cool encounter. Great convention, though. As you said, you met freaking everybody at that convention. You made
And I got to walk by and see some other people too. Like I got to see Mark Henry and stuff like that. And
Right.
and Ken Shamrock was there too. And it's just like, all right, I'm working with Jake, so I can't really like go bug and bother everyone. But a cool thing that happened that weekend was though, so I was staying with Jake there, and Jake was, sober and all that, but a bottle of tequila got sent to his room. And then he goes, from the manager, who's like, oh, hey, thanks for staying here. I'm a big fan. Here's a gift from the hotel. And he's just like, okay. And he just looks at me and goes, you want this? And it was like a bottle of Patron. I go, yeah, I'll take it. I don't really do tequila, but
it ain't crap. It's good
free
stuff.
liquor, I'll do it.
Yeah, good stuff.
So I think I ended up having some of that on because you said that was what, November? I think I had it New Year's Eve that year.
Okay, going into 2017
in the hot tub.
Nice. One of my favorite memories, not at the moment, it's one of those you look back on and you're like, damn, that was funny but almost dangerous. So I talked on a prior podcast with Kevin. We did Convention Chronicles, talking about conventions and so on. So that year, like you said, Mark Henry, with a lot of the pro wrestlers, even with Jake, you get together, you high five or shake hands or put your arm around one another, brotherly picture and stuff. So I made the mistake of sitting next to the world's strongest man of all people, Mark Henry. I threw my arm around him, bro, and he like shook it off, and he actually shook and looked at me. He said, don't do that. I get the heebie-jeebies. He went from a Colgate smile to you're gonna go through a table. So I was, you could just see in the photo how nervous I was. Like I said, all right, get it together. You paid about $40 for this photo op, so I'm smiling. I'm like, this picture cannot happen quick enough. I get up, and then he takes a picture with Michelle. He's smiling ear to ear. He's giving her compliments, all this other stuff, and then there I was, almost put through the floor.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I paid the same amount. What's going on?
My experience was completely different. I know, I felt terrible, but it's you just get so accustomed to it, and I respect that. But you're just so accustomed to that. With conventions, it's usually not a thing. But I get it. But that was one of my fond memories that weekend.
Yeah.
But, so now, Jake the Snake, was that your bridge to DDP and your experience with DDP yoga? Can you tell us about that? I know you did DDP yoga at his facility, right?
Yeah. So this is 2016 May. This is when I'm visiting Jake, right? And Jake and his daughter introduced me to juicing, and they have me do some of the like kind of low impact almost like excessive stretching, not really working out stuff of DDP yoga, right? So
Sure.
they kind of introduced me into it, and I'm kind of like getting into it, and they see that I'm taking it serious, and that's when Jake, excuse me, oh, the bubbles from my drink. That's when Jake, sorry, that's when Jake invites me to live with him, right? So he's like, hey, I talked to Dallas this morning, and I'm like, okay, oh, Diamond Dallas Page, okay, got it. And he goes, yeah, he thinks, what we're doing with you, we should document it, blah, blah, blah. And I go, oh, okay, like whatever, dude. He goes, yeah, I think, and this is a day after my like 31st birthday or 32nd birthday. And he's like, yeah, talk to Dallas. We want to document this. And you know what that means, right? And I go, okay, what? And he goes, yeah, I think you should move to Vegas and you should move in with us. And I'm just like, what? Again, blown away by that. Yeah, okay. I look out of the window of his like sliding glass door. I look out of the window, I see the mountains, and I'm like, yeah, this is the right move for me. I should, I did everything I could comedy wise in Texas. It's
Right.
time for me to leave Texas. So while preparing for the move from May to September, I bought, I got back again, drug dealer money, right? I bought a juicer, started juicing, and I started just going on walks and in my neighborhood. And in a little bit over 3 months, I lost 100 pounds in 100 days.
Wow, man. That's something.
Okay. So this is from, I would juice 6 days a week. I have a cheat day. I'd have like one meal and maybe like an apple or, like fruits and nuts in between that, but juice 2 or 3 times a day, have one meal, snacks, did that 6 days a week, cheat day, right? Repeat, and then do a lot of walking. And then of course, water on top of that. And yeah, I lost 100 pounds in 100 days. I took a photo of me wearing like, the Subway from Jared,
Yeah.
the pants holding them out to here. I was wearing a badass Sasha Banks shirt. And I
Nice.
remember she commented on it. And
Really?
that blew me away. I was like, oh my God.
The boss. What did she say? Words of encouragement?
She's
or
like,
what?
it was like, oh my God, congratulations, or something like to that effect of like, oh,
Cool,
that's so
cool.
amazing, that you lost all this weight. So that happens. So I tell Jake, I go, hey, I went to one of these truck stop bathrooms where they have the machine where you can weigh yourself, and I'm below what I weighed when I weighed myself at when I first got back.
Sure.
And he goes, oh man, he goes, yeah, you should meet Dallas. It's time for you to meet Dallas. And I'm like, okay. And so it was early September. I take a U-Haul. I drive from San Antonio to Vegas. I leave Friday night at 11 p.m. Right? I get to Vegas 2 a.m. Saturday, or no, I should say 2 a.m. in the morning Sunday. And then I flew out that Sunday night. I took a red eye from Vegas to Atlanta, and Monday morning met DDP and told him what I've been doing of like, hey, the first thing I attacked was my eating. And then he gave me like in his house, which is the same house they filmed Resurrection in, right? And I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. This is cool.
Yeah.
So he takes me through, he gives me like an assessment basically, right? He gave me some homework before. He like throughout the summer, he called me and he's like, hey, watch this documentary. Hey, watch this movie. Hey, watch this. Get better educated about GMOs and gluten and things like that. And I think there's a lack of food education in this country.
Absolutely.
And people don't know what they're ingesting,
Yeah.
So he puts me through the ringer and he does all this stuff. And this is, I don't know if this is a hustle from DDP, but he's like, you have an athlete's body, like you're super flexible and all this. And I go, hey, like in Germany, when I grew up, I played a lot of soccer, played a lot of basketball. Yeah, I'm pretty coordinated, I could throw football. I'm not like, I'm not one of these people. Like I'm
You got a nice spiral, right?
I did all right. They're like, damn, that big man can throw. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a quarterback you can't tackle, So, he's putting me through all this stuff and he's watching how flexible I am. And he's like, all right, like, holy shit, you could do some stuff. And that's when I got to meet his then wife, Brenda,
Right.
and, hang out there. And so that was, and then of course, go to the studio. They had me film some stuff. They did an interview with me and they were talking about, oh, what was it like meeting Jake? What did he say to me? And then, what's it been like, this and that. And so I got to talk about all that. And then I probably went and stopped by and stayed at DDP's house probably like 3 or 4 more times after that. And I remember one time in particular, my buddy was trying to flex. We were texting each other on Facebook Messenger. He's like, hey, I'm at the AT&T Center, for the Royal Rumble, watching it, having a good time. And I go, yeah, I'm in DDP's house right now. And he goes, fuck you, man. I'm like, I'm in DDP's house hanging out with Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall.
Nothing like a little bit of low-key one-upsmanship on that one.
Yeah, just like, oh, that's cool. Wish I could be there, but I'm stuck here in Atlanta.
Yeah, wop wop, right?
Yeah.
Was his DDP yoga studio, was that actually in his house or different premises?
No, it from that, I think he's built a new house since then, but
okay,
from that house to where his studio is at, probably like less than a 5-minute drive. So it was like in the same neighborhood, basically.
Okay.
So it's just right around the corner. That's when so was it that weekend where one of those weekends I had to drive Jake around because we did a radio thing in the morning. Sure. And this is where I scraped up DDP's Jeep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I drove this Jeep and I tried to park in this real tight parking space and I scraped this other guy's car. Uh-oh. And Jake was like, oh my God, did you touch that other guy's car? I was like, no. And he goes, oh yeah, you did, look. And I'm like, oh fuck. So I left the note on the other guy's car. And so that was like $400 out of pay. And of course DDP was like, does the guy know that it was my car? And I go, no. And we left before, the note was still there when we left and blah, blah, blah. Right. And because that's all that DDP was like, because he had a vanity plate on there that was like DDP, something 7 or whatever, that was his concern of like, he doesn't give a shit about the car, obviously, but it was like, I can't have it, be known that somebody with money hit their car.
Right. Fair enough. I get it.
And so, yeah, that was a trip. But yeah, that whole studio is great, man, because they could do all kinds of stuff, not only from filming the exercise stuff, but then also, doing a lot of the vignettes, a lot of the interviews that you see on AEW. A lot of the like AEW stuff gets filmed there, and I'm like, I recognize those chairs. Oh, that chair Shaq is sitting in, I farted in that chair, like stuff like that. I see all
wow, yeah, I did not know that. Not about you farting in the chair, but more so about
there's a good chance of any chair I sit in and I fart in, but yeah.
You left it better than you got it initially. So I know you discussed earlier the LA Comedy Club in Las Vegas. That's one of your mainstays. That's where you did a show this past June with one of the latest inductees, WWE Hall of Fame 2021 class, RVD. Rob Van Dam, as you said, yeah, we got to do that, right? RVD. Cool dude, man.
Absolutely.
I met him on a couple occasions, much different than with you. You worked alongside him. What have your interactions been like with him? And you said you see his work progressing at the comedy clubs.
Again, like very, he was kind of like in his notes, and as a fellow performer, I get that. I didn't want to like mark out too much or oh my God. Sure. But I just, when the comedy club contacted me because they're like, hey, we want to do a wrestling show, and you're the guy that's known for doing shows with wrestlers. We don't want to do the show without you. Are you interested? And I was like, hell yeah. And so, they had me do the show with RVD because, I've done shows with now Medusa, Raven, RVD, and of course, Jake. A lot of animal names. That's weird. All right.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, you're right.
So got to kind of briefly meet him and just, we had some mutual friends and stuff, but I really didn't get a chance to like mark out too much. And he gave me some of his rolling papers and we got a couple photos together. And I was like, can I get your number? I almost pulled one. I'll do it the next time I see him. I go, hey man, I do shows all the time with other wrestlers. Can I get your number? And
Yeah.
if you want to do another show together, like maybe do it like that. Kind of like get the balls and the courage up to do that. But he did approve my friend request on Facebook as a personal, not just fan
Oh, that's
page.
awesome. See, you take baby steps, right? That's a very professional way to go about it. You know all about it.
Yeah.
And I loved around WrestleMania time when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, where him and Riddle had that backstage segment. It was a real nice, subtle stoner moment amongst the two of them with the rolling papers.
Yeah, I found out like Riddle is super polarizing. I love Riddle. I run into a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't stand it. I'm like, he's such a goofy, lovable dork. I love it. Like,
I've come to realize that there is no gray area, like you said with Riddle. You either love him or you absolutely hate
yeah,
him. When he was in
I love
NXT, I enjoyed him. I did. But since he's been on the main roster and Raw, especially with this whole RK Bro, I love it with him and Randy Orton, Raw Tag Champions. He's really grown on me in the past 4 to 6 months.
He's given me a reason to like give a shit about Randy Orton. Because again, like when I took those 12 years off from not watching wrestling, I really didn't get to see the rise of Randy Orton. And I was like, okay, whatever, cool.
I missed that whole time too. I took a break from 2000 to about 2011, like you. I missed the whole John Cena, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't, I always thought Randy Orton was just kind of like boring and meh, but I like the depth and kind of how dynamic the two of them are. And, they kind of broke them up for a little bit and then they brought them back together, which I thought was smart. And so they're good pairing for sure.
I want to speak a little bit about Medusa, aka Alundra Blaze. I'm sure everybody's heard of her. December 18th, 1995, where she went on Monday Nitro, dropped the WWF Women's Championship into the garbage. I think that was one of the most infamous moments in pro wrestling, which I absolutely loved looking back at it. Actually, I ordered the NWA Empower pay-per-view a couple weekends ago, and it was great to see her on there. She introduced the women's tag titles. I'm not sure if you caught that, to the new champions. Those belts haven't been used since, if I'm not mistaken, April of 1984. So it's great to see her present those titles to the new champions. Yeah, Allison Kay.
I saw a post about it, but I haven't watched it yet. Yeah.
Dude, amazing pay-per-view, all women's pay-per-view, and her and Mickie James are the only two women to be a part of Evolution, all women's pay-per-view in 2018, and this women's pay-per-view, Empower. So again, you've worked with her in the past. Again, you guys are beach buddies. You guys, enjoy a nice little tan together and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we did some beachside yoga, and I'm like, what is with all these former wrestlers that want me to do yoga? Jeez, like,
right. So
it's a reoccurring theme. So
I'm telling you, man, you're a real trailblazer, bro. Listen,
yeah, there you go.
Options are endless.
I guess my body screams needs to do yoga. Like,
so tell me, had you guys, link up? You guys have done show or some shows together?
Yeah, so we met through Jake's daughter Cody, linked us up because Medusa wanted to pursue kind of like live performance, doing some stand-up stuff. And so we actually talked like pretty early in the pandemic. We did a lot of like FaceTime and phone calls that were 3-4 hours long. And she's like, all right, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I go, okay, let's, okay, this is not the right way to do that. You want to, let's tweak this. Let's do, talk about this and that. And then we got approached by Ad Free Shows to do a podcast, happy hour show together, and which I produced and, would write segments for and put together the topics and whatnot. And the thing that we focused on was women's wrestling, because, a bunch of these other shows and podcasts and everything else, they just kind of focus on, all the news that's going on in wrestling. Well, let's focus on women, and who better to do it with than with Medusa. And it was fun for a while. We got to do it, and then it just kind of like, we missed some shows here and there from either we didn't one of us couldn't be at the show or to do it, and then just kind of, I think Medusa just kind of like lost interest in it. We did hang out in May together to film some content to do hopefully an upcoming tour We'll see if it still works out. So we're still kind of like working on some of the numbers and for me, it's not my first rodeo, and I kind of like I know my value, I know my worth, and I know what I have to do. And if the workload to numbers don't equal up right, then I'm gonna have to pass.
Of
And
course.
so we're just kind of like looking at some of that stuff. So because it's like, I get it on the other side, somebody's a name and they can hopefully bring people in, but then if somebody else is doing all the work and everything else, then should be compensated. So, like,
No, of course, of course.
like I've taken a lot of hits and was of course a lot more naive in my younger days. And you got to learn and grow from those experiences and learn not to, I don't want to say get taken advantage of, but I want to make sure we're both getting out what we want from this, and so yeah, hopefully we can work something out. I know she's doing a lot of Twitch streaming, and sometimes I'll pop in on her and stuff like that, and she'll pop in on my stream, and we have some fun with each other. And a lot of her fans have become my fans, and vice versa.
Oh, that's good, man. That's
Oh yeah, and
it's,
I still get a ton of people that are like, "When are you coming back to Ohio? When are you coming back to Pittsburgh? When are you coming?" Just because of the one time they saw me with Jake, and that
right.
still means a lot to me, and like still blows me away. And I know earlier you were talking about, you asked me like, what are some of the best moments you had on stage, and uh, I just got reminded because I saw a photo of it, was when I performed with Jake in Pittsburgh, and my family got to kind of see what I do, at least like from my sisters. So my sister, brother-in-law, both of my nieces were there, and they got to see me just, I mean, I destroyed in Pittsburgh. I'm trying to be humble, but I fucking killed it in Pittsburgh. Got a standing O, then brought up Jake. And then
Wow.
my brother-in-law, who's like kind of like my dad, is just like in the sense of like, is a stable income, or do you have a 401k? Is it, like kind of very traditional job, because he's a nurse, x-ray tech, and all that kind of stuff. And after he saw me, he goes, "Yo, you're like really good at this. Like, you like, yeah, stick with, you're amazing at, like, for me to get that approval from him, because he saw me get that standing O and just crush and do this." And he goes, "Hey, Jake knows that you're better at him than this." And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up." Don't. And I go, "Of course I'm better at stand-up. I've been doing stand-up longer than Jake." Yeah, obviously. But
Right. It's your thing.
oh, not a knock on Jake for that, but for them to see me like in my best element of just like, oh, he's not just like screwing around talking about dicks and then drinking too much, because I think sometimes that's what some of my family members think I do. Like I have an uncle who's a retired Marine, and my cousin just turned 27, and he's like, "Oh yeah, when I turned 27, I was in the service, and this, I just got this rank and I became this." And I go, "Yeah, I think on my 27th birthday, and I told him, I go, I think I did cocaine with midget wrestlers in a bathroom at my party." And he goes, and again, this guy goes to church, retired military, and he goes,
Right.
he goes, "Run that by me again." And I go, "Yeah, we had a party at a hookah lounge. I was closed for me for the night, and I think I did cocaine with midget wrestlers." And he just started laughing.
Oh,
And he
that's
goes,
great.
and he's like, "This is the life you lead." And I go, I mean, sometimes, and other times it can be boring,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's not something you'd exactly make up.
Yeah. And then my buddy reminded me, he goes, "Isn't that the second time you did cocaine with midget wrestlers?" And I go, "Oh my God, you're right. Like, how bad is it that I forget that this has happened more than once?"
This is becoming a thing, actually. Wow.
Yeah. I think it's only happened twice now. So like,
That you
now
recall.
I hang out with, and again, midget wrestler, their word, not mine,
Right.
or micro wrestlers. But I know my buddy back home still keeps in touch with some of them.
Oh my God.
And I know
That's
he
great.
name drops me all the time, and it's the co-dad of our cat Bo.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so he's like, "Oh, this is my old roommate, Kool Aid. Yeah, he just shows with Jake the Snake." I'm like, "Quit name dropping me to like for you to get shit." Like,
Right. At every opportunity, right?
I know, like, stop clout chasing, bro.
One last thing I wanted to ask you about Medusa, by the way, is she still involved with the? I know she used to the monster trucks. Didn't she have a monster truck going and
Yeah,
stuff?
as far as I know, yeah. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing that I would help write and develop material for, and it's like,
Okay.
how it's like, oh, you think working for Uber is hard? Wait until you pull up in a monster truck, stuff like that. So I know she's she does talk a lot about that, and yeah, as far as I know, she still like is involved with it, and still has a monster truck. And
Where was a lot of those events held, by the way? Like that she would have her truck involved in all these events. Do you know, or like her?
I'm not sure.
Not
Yeah,
sure.
I know
Okay.
she's based out of Florida, so maybe around Florida
Maybe in that
and
area.
that kind of area. So yeah,
Yeah, it just popped in my head because I remember years back following her on social media. I was like, "Oh, she's involved with monster trucks." That not something I would have typically expected her to do, post wrestling
yeah.
career. But like you said, though, such an integral part of women's wrestling, past and even present, being at NWA Empower a couple weeks ago, Evolution. She was in that Battle Royale 3 years ago, and awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on here. I know this was
Yeah.
a lengthy podcast. I wanted to cover a lot with you, but I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you had
today,
all
man.
those notes. Yeah.
My God, cool. I know, man.
With Medusa, I actually got to meet I got to play Among Us with Nyla Rose.
Oh yeah.
And I got to in the game kill her, and I was like, because do you know about Among Us where you're on the spaceship?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I'm not super familiar, but yeah.
So the whole thing is you try to you find out who's the killer on the spaceship, and my strategy is I play super naive, and I go, "Oh, is this how you do it? I don't really play this game a lot." And then get my kills in,
reel it right in, yeah.
And then so I killed her, and then I killed I don't remember her name, but the Bailey super fan that's on NXT all the time, that little girl.
Izzy.
That's it, Izzy. I killed her and Among Us as well through a Twitch Medusa stream.
Oh God, incredible!
And then I've got to meet like Vicky Guerrero through her stream, and just be on the same screen with Vicky Guerrero and Thunder Rosa, and there's Medusa and me, and it's just like, what am I doing here? And then she's like, oh, this is my comedy buddy Alex, blah 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 blah.
That's cool. All these, whether you're with them in person or through a Twitch stream, all these opportunities and just different arrangements, like you said, Hornswoggle, Billy Gunn, the creator of the Ninja Turtles, like all these cool things that you've done in your life, and I think it's just so remarkable. But it's a testament to you always getting back on the horse per se, because it all begins with the comedy aspect of it, your passion, and it's led you to such awesome opportunities. Yeah, you take your bumps, but you always find a way to be involved somehow, or especially through this pandemic. You know what I mean? Keep going.
You got to catch up somehow, and then you meet celebrities that they may not be like important to you, but they'll be super important to somebody else.
Sure.
And for example, like when I was working with Medusa in May, we met. I hope I get this right. He's the bassist for Avenged Sevenfold, and I was like, okay, I can't name any of their songs. I'm sure I've heard their songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm more of a hip hop guy.
Same here.
But I was in a gas station. I saw a guy wear a Avenged Sevenfold shirt, and I gave him one of my stickers, and I go, oh, by the way, I met the bassist from that band, and I showed him a picture, and he's like, who are you? What? And in his eyes, that made me a legitimate comedian, because I was in this guy's house, and then here I am, here's a sticker, and you could see on Instagram where I'm hanging out with this, guy. And then at my at LA Comedy Club, we there's a comedian there named Adam Hunter, who hosts a MMA podcast. Super successful comedian, huge in the MMA community, almost like Joe Rogan. And so we constantly, and because again, it's Vegas, there's constantly UFC fighters coming out to the shows. I don't know who, 80% of these guys are, but I'm just like, oh, okay. Somebody would be like, yo, that's blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, just like, all right. And they're like, you want a photo with them? And I go, it would just feel disingenuous. Like if I just went, can I have a photo? It would just feel like clout chasing. And I'm like, I can't just assume everybody with cauliflower ear, is an MMA.
It's an MMA fighter. Right.
So
That's pretty cool though. Like even the Avenged Sevenfold situation with that guy. Hey, that may be the closest that guy ever gets to an insider perspective. And to you, it was kind of whatever because it wasn't really your shtick. But
yeah, I was like,
he'll
day
never
on the
forget that.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll never forget that opportunity or experience with you, and solidifies your legitimacy too, man.
Yeah.
So, well, before we get out of here, once again, thank you, Kool Aid. You are a cool cat. Appreciate
you,
this, man.
Thank you, Pat.
Please plug all of your social media because people need to go and follow you.
All right. So on Facebook, just Alex Ansel, all caps, ALEXANSEL. And then Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. Everything is Y2 Kool Aid, letter Y, number 2 Kool Aid, KOOLAID. My favorite thing really to post on is Instagram stories. Instagram's probably my favorite platform right now.
Same
And
here.
then of course Twitch, because I love the hanging out aspect of Twitch and I love console games, so I play a lot of video games. I also do a lot of just chatting. And one of my gimmicks that I do when I play video games is that while I'm playing a game, if you tip me a certain amount of money, I eat a hot pepper as I'm playing the game. Or I'll even take a break from the game, pause it, eat the hot pepper, and then go back to the game. So you can imagine where I'm playing something like Street Fighter 5,
right?
And then I get to the boss, and then people are like, all right, here's $20, eat a jalapeno, bitch. And I'm like, I take a fresh jalapeno, chomp on it, and then
wow.
Let me go back to the game. And I'm like, oh,
Well, if people didn't have reason to follow you prior to that information, I think they certainly do now. Watch Kool Aid, eat hot peppers and jalapenos and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
And come out to a show in Vegas and let me know what part of the country they're in, and because I know I got shows coming up in Texas, Colorado, Utah, Cali. So I'm gonna be moving. I just got a new van that I'm getting. I have to get insurance on it because my buddy wrapped it for me, so he put all my social media info on the van, and we're calling it the Cuddle Shuttle.
I was kind of hoping it was the Mystery Machine, but the Cuddle Shuttle works for me.
Yeah, hell yeah. So got shows all over, and then right now lately for like the last 3 weeks, I took a couple days off, but for the last 3 weeks I've been doing the 6:00 show at the LA Comedy Club inside the Strat with redneck comedian magician James Michael, so part of the redneck comedy variety show. And it's myself, James Michael, and then Amir the Miracle, who's a guitar musical act. And so but I took a couple days off because like doing a daily show for almost 21 days straight was like, hey, I need a couple days off. And
I would assume that wears on you. Yeah, you got to
yeah, for sure. So it's
recharge
like,
the old battery.
yeah, there's some people that they do it all day every day, and I'm like, all right, I got to get some ducks in a row. I have to do like errands and laundry, and
right.
My landlord's out of town, so I got to take care of his cats and do all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah. So, but thank you so much for having me on the show. I was real excited when you hit me up, and I'm glad you're still pursuing your passion of in creating content like this. So that's super badass, and I always look forward to your posts, and especially ones with you and your lovely wife. Like,
thank you, bro.
I look so happy. So give her my best.
Man. I will, man. And we got about 2 months away. We got the little baby girl on the way. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, man. She'll be here
that's awesome.
mid-November or so. So yeah, looking forward to that.
All right. Hell yeah.
If you think of any names in the meantime, feel free to DM me. We're still working on that. We're having a hard time.
Okay. All right. Well, my whole name is Stuart Alexander Ansel III. So if you wanted to do Stephanie Alexis, you're welcome.
You know what? I'm going to run that by her as soon as we get off air. All right. Is that cool? Bro, thank you again, man. That is Kool Aid with me. Alex Kool Aid Ansel. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I am Pat Deneen, and me and Kool Aid, we'll catch you next time.
Believe.